Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I am the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1483 of the War News stream. And tonight we have more big news to cover. We are seeing that U.S. forces are preparing to seize the Strait of Hormuz imminently in a massive operation. We're also seeing that Iranian nuclear power plant, one of them, was actually struck by missile fire today, allegedly. And also, Moscow is on lockdown today, even worse than before, amid even further coup fears and a speech crackdown. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of news from around the world, as we have been able to see significant developments throughout the entirety of the world, especially the Middle East and Eastern Europe, as we were able to hear reports that the United States of America, after failing to form a multinational coalition to be able to deal with the upcoming issue of retaking the Strait of Hormuz, will now be conducting imminent actions to attempt to retake the Strait of Hormuz with only American power and American means available militarily. This also comes at the same time as we have been able to hear that the USS Iwo Jima, the USS Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group of the 31st MEU is currently off the coast of Singapore at this moment and is attempting to make its way into the Indian Ocean and towards the area to prepare for the amphibious operations that are soon to follow. We have also been able to hear, speaking of that attempted development, that all the nations of the G7 have completely and flat out refused to join the United States of America in a naval expedition to try and clear the Strait of Hormuz. According to most nations that gave official answers, the reason why they are refusing to conduct such actions is because they did not start the war, and secondly, they do not believe that it is worthy of an expenditure and loss of equipment and personnel for a war that the United States generally started on its own, and not only that, has generally not taken into consideration, at least for the G7 countries, other considerations and issues that they have had, like, for example, the United States lifting the sanctions on the Russian Federation to try and lessen the strain on global oil infrastructure. We've also been able to see significant developments within the Islamic Republic of Iran, as the capital of Tehran has come under significant attacks again today. And we were able to see that the head of the besiege, Ori Larijani, was killed today in some form of airstrikes conducted either by the Israeli Defense Forces or the United States Armed Forces. It's a little bit unclear as to which at the moment, but still, the strikes do appear to have landed on their marks, and the Iranians have also confirmed that their top officials are now generally 6 feet under. We've also been able to see other major strikes occurring within Tehran, but most importantly, near to the area of the Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant, there have been first-hand reports that some sort of explosions have happened near to the area of the facility, possibly suggesting that there may have been some sort of an attempted attack on the Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant or an area nearby to the Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant over the course of the day. The Islamic Republic of Iran has been trying to conduct last-ditch attacks as much as possible on our remaining allies within the region, including the state of Israel today, by launching a significant number of Karam-Shahor 4 intermediate-range ballistic missiles that are equipped with cluster rounds. A decent amount of those were able to make impact inside the state of Israel and have caused a decent amount of damage. We've also been able to hear that within the area of the United Arab Emirates, a significant number of similar missiles and also drones have been used against the UAE once again today, with the United Arab Emirates air defenses attempting their best to try and quell the situation. We've also been able to see that within Saudi Arabia, the announcement has finally come out from the Ukrainian government that their forces are operating within the region, and the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has stated they're trying to provide everything as much as they possibly can in drone defense to the Gulf state allies that are allowing the state of Ukraine to help them out, although the United States of America was given the offer for help by the state of Ukraine for drone defense. The president of the United States flat out refused the gesture and largely insulted the Ukrainian president for even suggesting such an attempt to add help. We've also been able to see that in the meantime, the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad has been hit several more times by Iranian and pro-Iranian militia drones over the course of the day, and it also appears that a Kurdish base within Erbil was also hit as well by some form of Iranian militia or IRGC fire over the course of the day. Additionally, we have also been able to hear within the United States of America some further developments on the situation and statements about NATO after most of the G7 and the entirety of NATO flat out refused in joining in on the clearing of the Strait of Hormuz, and we have also been able to hear further reports of the situation ongoing in Europe, as we were able to see that another war game has been held just recently by the state of Ukraine and NATO, and it appears that Ukraine has once again been able to actually beat NATO forces in another military exercise by absolutely unbelievable margins, once again showing the Ukrainian military doctrine is generally well ahead of the curve, and NATO is trying to implement those ideals into their doctrines to be able to use in the conflicts that may be coming here in the near future. The European Union has also vetoed Hungary's vote to not provide support to Ukraine and will be providing a $90 billion general lend-lease to Ukraine, if we want to call it that, in arms, equipment, and other support that will be provided to help Ukraine keep the war effort rolling. We've also been able to see that the Ukrainian armed forces have conducted significant drone attacks within the Russian Don region once again today, and we've also been able to report inside the area of Moscow that it appears that a larger number of security forces are now being deployed once again onto the streets in preparations for the civil unrest that is now appearing imminent to follow. We've also heard that the St. Petersburg metropolitan area's internet has been shut down over the course of the day. This is one of the largest cities within the Russian Federation. I believe it's actually the second largest by far, once again showing us that the Russian Federation is trying to shut down internet connectivity and to also ensure that the communications in between the Russian citizens in most major metropolitan areas will be more difficult to conduct. The Ukrainian armed forces have also been able to inflict significant damage onto the Russian armed forces over the course of the day, and has also been able to push the Russian Federation back a decent amount within some specific areas of the front, and is still continuing to show that the Russian Federation, due to their loss of Starlink and also their banning of Telegram and WhatsApp, are once again facing a large frontline, I guess you could say, disadvantage due to the fact that the Ukrainians have the communication and drone warfare superiority edge over the Russian Federation on the battlefield so far. With that in mind, we're about to be getting into all of this news, starting with our largest stories first, and then moving our way on into the smaller stories throughout the night. But before we do, we actually do have breaking news that's coming out at this moment. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so right on cue, there is more breaking news right at the very beginning. We should make this a regular segment at this point. It seems to be happening pretty much every single night since the Iran war started. But right now, we are hearing that apparently the Israeli Defense Forces have detected missile launches from Iran, and now the Home Front Command is warning people inside of Israel to take shelter immediately in the affected areas. Also, by the way, we have gotten a video showing what appears to be an Iranian missile over southern Israel right now, and I can't tell if it was intercepted or maybe it just simply possibly made impact with the ground. I really can't tell here, but we can take a look at that video. And then after this video, we have some news about that Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant situation.
And when you see this missile coming in over southern Israel, a fairly large burning orb going through the sky, and then over into the horizon. It doesn't appear that we were able to confirm an impact, so it's up in the air right now as to whether that was intercepted or whether it hit a target within the area.
Indeed. So we're not really sure yet. But also, by the way, we do have some news here. We're going to get to this in detail a little bit later. But just to let y'all know, for the people asking about this, there was an alleged strike on the site of the Iranian Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant facility. The reactors were not hit. I want to make that perfectly clear up front. No reactors were hit, so that's the big deal. But the Iranians and also some agencies are claiming that there was a missile impact on the facility. Well, we're now learning that there's apparently no damage to the plant whatsoever and no injuries reported. So it's up for debate whether or not the Iranians are lying about that. It's possible, but we'll have to wait and see. But that is the breaking news for right now.
And we'll be keeping an eye on all of these breaking news developments as we continue the show. But with all of this in mind, it is time for us to get on into the major news that we have over the day, starting with our largest stories first and then moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night. Moving us on into our largest and most important story of the day, we have been able to confirm that the United States of America will be conducting imminent actions against the Iranian forces near to the Strait of Hormuz and will be attempting to retake the area of the strait. The Strait of Hormuz is an incredibly important international passageway for commercial vessels that are attempting to load up with Middle Eastern oil and ship it out into the greater part of the world. Currently, we know that crude oil prices are still remaining somewhat higher than their norms, at least recently, currently hovering around $94 per barrel, and this is compared to the historical trend before the conflict started, where the price of oil was about $65 per barrel at the pre-war figure. This means that the price of oil has largely risen almost 45%, nearly 50% since the beginning of the conflict. And while we have seen that it started to stabilize around the $100 to $90 per barrel of oil price, it does also appear that this may have a chance of rising here in the near future. Currently, there's a large amount of efforts made to try and mitigate the rising price and also try and stabilize the price where it's at right now. But without imminent action against the Strait of Hormuz and Iran's blockade of the area, these prices of oil will inevitably start to rise to portions and figures that had not yet been seen in modern history. We'd even see that this would surpass the price per barrel of oil that was seen in the summer of 2008, when it reached its historic high, if I'm not mistaken, of $147 per barrel of oil. Easily these days, we could see that such an action of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, if this continues in a prolonged form, could easily see that the price per barrel of oil rises well above $150. And for that reason, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz is an incredibly important venture. The United States seems to have not planned or really foreseen that the Strait of Hormuz would be a larger issue, because we did not see that within the original war plan, if we want to call it then, the execution of the war plan, any real or significant actions were actually made to ensure that the Strait of Hormuz remained open and clear for commercial oil traffic to be able to pass in and out of the area. We've been able to hear now that, according to the president, he had actually predicted the Strait of Hormuz would be closed, but that also brings up the question as to if they predicted that, and that's really the only way that the Iranians could ever really try and hurt us, because militarily they're absolutely, I guess you could say the weakest link of the BRICS chain or the Axis chain that we're fighting in the world right now. Why in the world did we not go and already start dealing with the Strait of Hormuz from day one? And apparently we've not been able to hear from the administration the answer to that question. Still, the United States of America did go out of its way to try and create a multinational coalition because of the ongoing situation around the area of the Strait of Hormuz. And we were able to hear that the United States is surely going to have to go this one alone. Every single member of the G7 has flatly refused to even join in an attempt to re-clear the Strait of Hormuz, with a large amount of these countries making a variety of different statements, but largely making it incredibly clear that, one, they haven't really been happy with their treatment by the United States in foreign policy so far. Two, whether or not they're involved, the Strait of Hormuz will have to be reopened by somebody, meaning that the United States would have to do it whether they join in or not. And then three, a lot of them are also saying that they didn't really start the conflict, and for that reason, they shouldn't be the spearhead first into the strait to see that a large amount of their sailors and vessels end up getting damaged or destroyed in the midst of the conflict that would be coming to follow. So it does appear that the United States will largely be having to take this action on its own. There has been a little bit of positive news over the course of the day that the Indian Navy has actually been able to escort two of its own LNG tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, and according to the Times Times of India. The vessels belong to the state-owned Shipping Corporation of India and were transporting fuel for India's industrial sector. Another Indian tanker remains in the Persian Gulf under the protection of a naval warship, which is showing that at least at a minimum, the Republic of India has been able to get a small number of its own LNG tankers out of the Strait of Hormuz and into the open sea of the Gulf of Oman with a little bit of elbow grease, if you want to call it that, from the Iranian Navy. But it also doesn't appear that they came under fire, possibly showing that the Islamic Republic of Iran is now starting to pick and choose who might be under threat. And if they believe that the country is more so leaning towards the Axis powers, they let them get a pass.
Yeah, so we had heard that the Iranians were in talks with India. We had heard that, I believe, on Sunday morning. I think we had heard that. The Indians were trying to negotiate with Iran for safe passage, and it sounds like they've generally gotten that. But it sounds like India's not too confident in the Iranians letting their ships pass through, because the fact they had to send a naval vessel to escort it, that's not indicating very much confidence. But apparently it did make it through. So it seems like really Iran is just trying to hurt the United States and Israel with the blockade, and most other countries are being allowed through for the most part.
Yeah, I would have to say it does appear that generally India was able to kind of strong arm, I guess, its way through the strait. But we believe that the situation would be a lot more different for Western aligned countries like those within ASEAN or our East Asian allies like Japan, South Korea, and our allies in Europe and the Americas, like for example, the entirety of the European Union or any other NATO member like Canada. So for that reason, we're still thinking that most passages would not be possible. And if we take a look really quickly at marine traffic, we can actually take a look at the active traffic through the strait right now. It actually appears that there is one Iranian cargo vessel which is making its way through, along with another Indian cargo vessel which is also transiting the area. But most, if not all, of the vessels that are currently within the Strait of Hormuz, as usual over the past few weeks, are all either Iranian flagged or they're flagged out of a country that seems to be largely aligned with the People's Republic of China, or at least somewhere on the fence enough that the Iranians aren't confident enough to shoot on the vessel. That appears to be the case of what we're understanding at the moment right now. This is also giving us a little bit of a decent context, or an understanding at least for right now, that generally Iran is trying to pick and choose and make sure to lean towards easing the suffering on its allies like China and China's allies as well, so that way it doesn't end up becoming an internationally condemned issue where multiple countries, including Iran's allies, may come to try and clear the Strait of Hormuz. But at the moment, a lot of people are talking about the situation with the attempted formation of a multinational coalition and what in the world's going on with that and what people are thinking about that right now. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so we did hear, unfortunately, that the United States went to the NATO and European allies and specifically asked most of them to go and help out with reopening the Strait of Hormuz by sending their navies down to the strait to help reopen it. So from what we've heard so far from U.S. officials, apparently that did not go well whatsoever. Pretty much all of the NATO and EU allies pretty much said, this is not our conflict, we didn't start this, and we are not going to be sending our navy down there to sacrifice it on behalf of the United States. That's basically what the U.S. was told today. So as y'all may have noticed, the U.S. officials went on a political rampage today, and they started tweeting out all kinds of stuff, pretty much bashing Europe for the most part for not showing up. So how do you feel about that? Because that's obviously a pretty big deal right here, pretty much a refusal of help from Europe toward the United States for probably obvious reasons. But what do you think? 39% said, I agree with NATO. They should probably stay out. While 38% said, I'm angry with NATO. They should help the United States. And 18% said, I can see both arguments in the situation. Now, here's the catch. I feel like Europe is doing this because they're trying to let the United States feel the downsides to basically pissing on the NATO alliance. I think that's probably why they're doing this, because in reality, it would also benefit Europe to reopen the strait. But here's the catch. If they do that while the U.S. is basically, taking a crap on them to a large degree, then they're basically saying, it's okay. You can continue crapping on us and that'll be it. We'll just accept it and we'll also help you in the meantime. So I feel like they're using this as an opportunity to try to set the record straight, but I don't think it's going to work the way they think it's going to work. It's not going to really convince the U.S. to operate fairly. It's just going to probably anger the leadership, and they're probably going to start retaliating against NATO, probably even worse. So they're expecting logic, but I don't think they're going to get any. So I can actually see both arguments here. I really wish Europe would help out, because it's imperative for the global economy that the strait gets reopened, because if the U.S. is being held back and Israel's being held back from going through the strait, that's problematic for everybody. So I wish they would help, but I also understand why they're pissed and they don't want to help either. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I've seen that this is a fairly split poll. Currently, it's 38 and 40 for the two major options, and about 18% can see both sides of the argument. I would have to be entirely honest with y'all, folks. I mean, it's not good from an American perspective that they're not going to be helping out, but at the same time, looking at it from the perspective of our allies, I mean, we've seen this coming for a while. We've been talking about it on the channel basically the entire time that this administration's been in charge, that every single time they go out of their way to publicly shit on our allies, it's only going to push them farther and farther away from being that apt and willing to help us out whenever we ask them to help out. We've seen in the past that the British were more than willing to help out inside the Middle East, literally within this current conflict, because we had already heard that the British government had offered the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy and its Fleet Air Arm to be able to provide offensive actions and military strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran within the first week and a half of the war. And instead of the United States thanking them for such a gracious offer of providing two carrier strike groups of their own to assist us in our own operations against Iran, we publicly slammed the British for even offering support and then stated that they're weaklings and they're not going to be joining in a war that we've already won. And then afterwards, literally only 2 weeks after that, which is where we're at right now, then we say, okay, Britain, now we want you to hop in, and we also want you to send your own ships into harm's way into the middle of the Strait of Hormuz ahead of our own Navy and see if you can get your sailors and your ships killed before we have to send ours in. And then the British are obviously going to go no, because if you've already shot them down when they were more than willing to volunteer, and the British particularly had literally volunteered and gone out of their way to say, we could go down there and help you all out. We have two carrier groups that are available right now. Literally, the entire carrier fleet of the Royal Navy was available to assist, and we told them, hell no, get lost. We don't even want you here. So then 2 weeks later, you can't go back and ask them, hey, can you come down here and possibly risk your own sailors and your own countrymen to see that we clear out an issue that we've created, and then expect them to say, yeah. I mean, they're probably going to say no at that point because you've diplomatically insulted them prior.
Yeah, that's a huge problem, and really, that's what the U.S. is really asking Europe. That's what they're asking them to do. They're asking them to send their naval vessels down there to the Strait of Hormuz and basically be the sacrificial lamb in that scenario to a large degree. So it's like, that's what we've been discussing for over a week. We've been talking about this international coalition that the U.S. is trying to set up with these countries from Europe, NATO, etc., to go to the Strait. The big question's always been, well, who's going to be the first one to go in? Is it going to be Europe? Is it going to be the United States? Who's it going to be? In my opinion, as much as I really don't want to say this, it should be the United States going in first because we're the ones that got this thing kicked off. So it's our responsibility to take care of it because we started it. So, I think what the U.S. is trying to do is they're trying to convince Europe and basically sort of bully them into sending their guys in first and putting them at risk instead of our people, which, I'm not sure if Europe's ever going to agree to something like that. That would be kind of crazy.
Also, on top of that, folks, you have to look at it from another perspective. The Europeans really weren't consulted at all before this war started on whether or not they would even join. And that's something that I haven't really talked about before, but the United States' contact with Europe, or specifically the NATO contingent in Europe, has almost been entirely non-existent throughout the entirety of the current administration. And on top of that, we didn't communicate anything with them about what was going to be going on in the Middle East. That became clear within the first 2 days when everybody in Europe said we didn't even know that was going to be happening, and they didn't even communicate that strikes were coming. You generally have to communicate to countries about what you're doing, and if they're allies, treat them like allies. You can't treat them like little henchmen because these aren't little henchmen. These are independent countries. They can just walk away and do nothing, and then we're kind of left having to do what we're doing right now. So I would have to say, I understand this isn't really an advantageous position for the United States to see that literally every single one of our allies, not just in Europe, I do have to point out that it was also Japan and Australia, along with South Korea as well, that all flatly refused to even help us out at all in the Strait of Hormuz. So literally every single one of our allies in the world has almost flatly refused to help us at all with this situation. And that kind of comes with the territory of dissing on everyone 24/7. I mean, if you were sitting around with a friend right now and you would always consider them to be a friend, and then they just cussed you out endlessly for weeks, and then they said, oh, by the way, my engine's broken down on my car, can you give me a couple of grand so that way I can go and fix my engine? You're probably going to tell them no. That's generally how this stuff works. And while people will always say, well, this isn't a great time to show someone's displeasure, it's not. That's why they're doing it. They're wanting to show how displeased they are, and this is the best way to do it, is whenever we're in a crisis point, show them what happens when you end up dissing on allies endlessly, is that they won't be there for you when you actually need them. So I would generally say...
I'm just not so sure though if it's going to work the way Europe's thinking, because I'm sure that in Europe's head they're thinking, okay, if we demonstrate at this time of need right here and let the U.S. feel the pressure of not having allies, then maybe that will change the U.S. perspective toward NATO, and maybe the U.S. will come back around. I don't think that's going to be the effect they're going to have here, because typically that would work on certain people. Like certain people would have the realization that they can't just bully around their friends, otherwise there's going to be consequences. But I think with the current leadership, it's actually going to incite probably more retaliation against Europe, and also probably further destroy the NATO alliance to a large degree, which is obviously bad for everybody. And you would hope they would come to their senses, but I think honestly they're probably not.
Probably not. I also see some people saying, "Well, that's not right. Allies should always follow us everywhere we go." But let me put it this way, because it's a two-way street. It's never a one-way street. And here's how things have been going already in Europe. Everybody in Europe goes, the war in Ukraine is an essential war for us. It is a war of necessary survival, because if we don't stop the Russians in Ukraine, they are going to expand further westward, and they're going to threaten the Baltics, Poland, and also some of the Scandinavian countries as well with armed invasion. And the Europeans have been going, we ask our ally, the United States, to help us in this time of need, to be able to provide arms and equipment to the state of Ukraine alongside us as well, so that we can see that this Russian threat is dispelled, because it's an imminent threat to our safety in Europe. Very much similar to the situation that we're saying we have right now with Iran. And America's response over the past year and 3 months has been, kiss our ass, Zelensky is a con man, Ukraine is nothing but a sham state, we're not really going to do anything to help them out, y'all can buy the weapons from us, but we're not going to do anything to go out of our way to help out whatsoever, and y'all are basically high and dry on dealing with this whole European situation, no matter how it goes. And so the Europeans are going, well, what an ally. Like we were there for the United States when they declared Article 5 over the September 11th attacks in 2001, and we went with them to Afghanistan and such in the war on terror. And now that it comes around that we're at threat from the Russians, from imminent or possible armed invasion in the future, the United States just told us, y'all are all up the creek without a paddle, high and dry as far as we're concerned. Y'all can figure that out on your own. Then on top of that, like just to put out a couple of other things that are going to piss off the Europeans, we implemented tariffs against them last year universally, no matter what country they were or what position they were taking in the EU or NATO, we smacked a tariff on them all. And then we also threatened to annex Greenland, to the point that they actually started to deploy forces to Greenland, because they were scared the invasion of the island could be imminent. So not only have we largely put ourselves into an indifferent position with them, we've also put ourselves in some instances with some countries in Europe almost in a near hostile position, because they're having to base forces in Greenland to defend against what might be a possible aggression or an invasion by the United States on sovereign territory of the Kingdom of Denmark. Now, with all of that put together, then the United States goes to war in the Middle East, which is a good war. I mean, like don't get me wrong, the war with Iran is a good one, and it had to be done. But at the same time, though, with all of that in mind in the Europeans' minds, we then go down to Iran, and then we end up seeing that the Strait of Hormuz didn't really go the way we thought it would. And then we go up there and go, okay, everybody, now it's time to cash in on the alliance. Now y'all all need to come and help us out. Where in the world, were we as an ally for the past year and 3 months for them in any situation?
Yeah, and also, by the way, it's like, why, the U.S. officials just said today, they said, well, we really don't need NATO. Like, we don't need their help. We can go to open up the Strait of Hormuz on our own. It's like, then why did we ask? And also notice this, there's a very important distinction with this as well. From the sounds of it, the U.S. went and individually and informally asked the European countries to help out inside the Strait of Hormuz. Notice, though, that the U.S. could convene an Article 4 conference under the NATO articles. They could have convened a conference and made it formal and official and tried to invoke Article 5. They could have done that, but they chose not to for whatever reason, which is kind of interesting to me. It seems like they want to keep it largely informal, so that way they could claim later, spin the narrative so that way it sounds like NATO pretty much screwed the United States pretty much. But it's like, why not just do a conference? That's the way that it's supposed to happen. They're supposed to call a conference, they discuss it, all the NATO allies together, and then they decide on NATO Article 5, but they didn't.
And now another thing that I have to say, folks, is that in an alliance where we're saying the countries are our allies, and going off of this premise, folks, before people say Europe isn't our allies, well, the whole thing y'all are angry about is that we just called on them because they're our allies to support us in the Middle East, and they all said no. I mean, they didn't just say no. Everybody else around the world said no. I mean, literally everybody who was an ally to the United States just said, no, we're good, thanks, and didn't get involved. The reason why that happened is because the U.S. is basically going around and trying to make an exploitative arrangement with every country in foreign policy. An alliance is where we scratch their backs and then they scratch ours. It's never a one-way street. That's why a lot of people don't like Europe, is because in America, a lot of people have been sold the lie that Europe exploits the United States and we get nothing in return. The reality is that we would get a lot in return if we treated it as a mutual arrangement. If we had treated it mutually, a lot of those countries in Europe just yesterday would have said yes, and they would be coming down to the Strait of Hormuz right now to come and help us out. They're not. So you have to treat them fairly. I mean, if we would have to provide help to them in the way that they need help. If they think the Ukraine war is important and is a necessary one for their defense, we should be helping them out in trying to support the state of Ukraine. And then at that point, if we had a problem in the Middle East and then we called upon them and then they said no, then I'd be saying that they're not really that great of an ally, because then it's a one-way street in their direction. But you can't have a one-way street in our direction and then act like when people aren't happy about that they're bastards. I mean, that's what people have been complaining about in the United States. That's what a lot of y'all are complaining about right now, is that Europe just exploits America and we get nothing out of them. Well, the hell, that's how the Europeans have been feeling for a year now. It has to be equal. We have to be fair with them so that way they'll be fair with us. Otherwise, this alliance isn't going to be making it that much farther. That's just the truth of how this sort of thing works in foreign policy. But moving on from that, we have also been able to get some other developments and statements of the situation within the region as well, especially around the area of the Strait of Hormuz. And while the United States isn't going to be getting any international support, at least at the moment, we have been able to hear that there is positive progress being made within the area as a part of the larger U.S. military operation Epic Fury. According to CENTCOM, hours ago, U.S. forces successfully employed multiple 5,000-pound deep penetrator munitions on hardened Iranian missile sites along Iran's coastline near the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian anti-ship cruise missiles in these sites posed a risk to international shipping in the strait. So we're already seeing that a lot of the preparatory actions that, to be entirely honest, should have been done on day one are finally being done 3.5 weeks in, and that damage is starting to be caused to the anti-ship elements on shore that could still pose a threat to U.S. naval vessels and commercial shipping that's attempting to pass through the area. This is something that's showing us a very positive development, and just to be completely frank with you, all this should have been done on the first day. I mean, it's not hard to find these sites. You can find them on satellite photography on Google almost. But beyond that, they finally are hitting them, and they're finally trying to start clearing out most of the actual onshore threats, which are the main threat that would be posed to naval forces and merchant vessels passing through this area, which shows the United States is already moving forward on trying to clear out the strait single-handedly, which, to be entirely honest with y'all, whether there was a multinational alliance or not, this is going to be fairly easy once we start putting some effort towards it. But a lot of people are starting to put in their opinions on what they're thinking is going to be happening on the Strait of Hormuz. Is this going to go well? Is this going to go poorly? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so we did see, like the enforcer just mentioned, a massive bunker buster campaign on the entire coast of Iran, and they're trying to strike these hardened shelters where there's anti-ship missiles being stationed and other sites like that. So also, I would assume that they've probably tried to hit the drone boat sites as well, because we were talking about that before also, that the drone boats are largely kept underground in hardened bunkers that Iran has on the coast, and I think that might have been the target as well. So that was a good strike. Like, that was something they needed to do for quite some time, and it sounds like they finally got around to it weeks later. So what do you think about this? Because now we're hearing that the U.S. plans to seize the entire Hormuz Strait by force and is planned to take weeks. So apparently a massive operation. And how do you think it's going to go? 44% said it will work well and be successful, while 36% said it's going to go badly and I'm worried about it. And 7% said we must have the Allies' help or this is not going to work. So the way it sounds right now is it's going to be the United States, the Navy, Air Force, etc., along with Israel. So right now, that's the only nations that are going to be involved in this offensive operation to take the Hormuz Strait. That's what we're hearing. So if it's those two countries, obviously that's a lot of power between the two. It would be nice to have the help of the allies, but I think, though, if the U.S. wants NATO's help, they're going to have to do it the formal way. They're going to have to go through Article 4, try to get Article 5 declared, and see what they say about that. And also, might have to change their tune a little bit to actually get their assistance. So, here's the thing. People out there say, oh, NATO is like leeching off the United States. Here's the catch. Here's the thing. This is the chance right here for the United States to cash in on that help from NATO. But all it takes, here's the price. The United States has to treat NATO with respect. They have to start treating them with some type of decency. And that's the price. If we started doing that, I would imagine that NATO would change their mind and they would help. So I think it's going to go well, but I do believe that we need the Allies' help on this. We need as much help as we possibly can because right now, this is a quagmire, to say the least. The Hormuz Strait situation is a disaster at this point. The United States has done a good job with the land targeting inside of Iran, but they have not done a good job reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And right now, that has to get reopened because we're already seeing ripple effects with the oil economy, the fertilizer market, and things like that starting to have real effects in the global economy that's going to start compounding over the next couple of months. So, Enforcer, what say you?
I'd say that generally it will go well, whether or not any allies are involved or not. But I think that this ought to start showing some folks that there needs to be a little bit of a change in how we're currently running foreign policy right now. To make it a little bit clear, folks, the last time that we ever had to really cash in on the alliance that we have with Europe was way back in 2001 during the attacks that happened on the United States on September 11th. And because we had been treating them incredibly favorably up until that point, and we're always telling them that they're great allies and great friends, and we'll go until the end with all of them over there, that when we got attacked and we declared Article 4, they all unanimously then voted to declare Article 5 for us to then go over there into the Middle East with us and go to war and fight and die with us, because generally we treated them quite well. Nowadays, we're treating them quite poorly. And in foreign policy, allies are only allies if it's a mutual arrangement. If it's not a mutual arrangement, and it's more so an exploitative one, where one side's just trying to get all of the value they can out of the other without really providing anything, an alliance is going to start falling apart really quickly. You can't do things like, for example, impose tariffs on the entirety of Europe just arbitrarily and then cause some economic damage because of that and then act like it's no big deal. You can't threaten to annex Greenland when the Danish aren't willing to give it up and just threaten to take military action to take it without that setting bad moods inside of Europe. And then on top of that, you can't sit there and tell Europe that on their Iran war, which is the Ukraine war, they're a bunch of stupid idiots that are weak pansies, and that's just stupid because Russia's a great country, and then shit on their foreign policies and what they consider to be their prerogatives. That's something that you just can't do, because once you start doing that, it becomes exploitative, because we tell them nothing of theirs matters. It has no impact on us. Screw you people, we hate you. But by the way, we want your guys to come down here and die with us if necessary while we try and clear out the strait. You can't do that. I mean, like, if we wanted to see, like, and I'll be honest with y'all, folks, I would definitely be on board with being outraged at NATO right now if this was the situation. If we were still supporting Ukraine significantly, and we were treating the Europeans well, and we were talking about them nicely, and we were saying that they're a great bunch of people over there, and they do amazing things, but then we sit there and ask them to come down to the Strait of Hormuz with us, and then they told us no, then I'd be pissed, because that'd be absolutely ridiculous. We would be doing everything over the moon for them and being a great ally like we should be, and then basically getting screwed over the end. Now, that would be enraging. But right now, while this is disappointing, I mean, you know, you got to understand, folks, you have to take a foreign policy approach to where they feel respected, to where they'll respect us, and when we call upon them, they'll actually come to help us out, much like we would be helping them out right now. And
also, what's it hurt? I mean, it does that's the catch is as well. It's like it does zero harm to the United States to simply speak to the allies with respect, because it is a mutual respect basis. A lot of the NATO countries are nuclear powers, so it's not like they're underlings or something like that. These countries are generally our equals. Now, granted, they spend a lot less in their military, but at the same time, though, they're not as large of a country as we are, and they're also not the same as the United States. The United States has always been huge spending on the military, so I mean, all it takes is simply showing respect and treating them as equals, because they are equals. It's like they're not underlings, and it's like we're only doing harm by talking to NATO like we're doing right now. It's only doing harm right now. It's like could you imagine, like you're saying, if we were still on good terms with NATO, I would imagine they would send people down immediately if we asked for it. They would probably do it immediately, because like, hell, we're not going to jeopardize the alliance. We're going to go down there and help, because they did back on 9/11 when we called up their help. They came and helped us, but they won't now, because obviously the calculus has changed quite a bit. So that's all it takes. Just a little language change. That's not too much to ask.
Yeah, I mean, treating people nicely will go pretty far, but treating them like they're crap and then demanding that they do everything, I mean, it's not really going to get far, to be unfortunately honest with everyone. But moving on from that, We've also been able to hear of other developments within the Strait over the course of the day. We were able to hear that, unfortunately, the UK MTO did report that another vessel had been hit 23 nautical miles east of Fujairah. The tanker had been struck by an unknown projectile and apparently had caught on fire. There was some minor structural damage, no injuries to the crew, and there's been no environmental impact at the moment, but still showing that there is operational anti-ship capabilities of the Islamic Republic of Iran around the area. Moving us on from that, though, we've also been able to confirm that near to the area of Bandar Abbas, the IRGC officials in charge of operating the blockade have stated that they will keep the Strait of Hormuz in a non-pre-war status well into the indefinite future, meaning that they're going to be trying to keep this blockade going no matter what, no matter if the conflict even ends. They'll still be trying to enact the strait to punish the Middle Eastern nations for supporting the United States in the conflict, and also punish the greater world at large as well, just because. So it does once again show us that the Iranians are operating fairly irrationally at the moment, and while the Indians did get some vessels through, it doesn't really appear that that's going to be the norm at all in the future for any Western vessels. We've also been able to hear, moving us on out of that news, of some other significant developments that have occurred near to the area of Bushehr, which we were able to actually get confirmation of at the very beginning of the stream. It appears that we were able to get reports earlier today that strikes had apparently been reported near to the area of the Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant in the Iranian city of Bushehr. The Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant, if I'm not mistaken, is the only operational power-producing nuclear power plant within the entirety of the country. From what we know, it currently has one operational reactor. This one right here is currently having a second one that's being built near to the area of the original reactor, and once it's fully operational, it will have, I believe, a total of 3 or 4 reactors that are operational and running. Apparently, from what we've heard today, some sort of an explosion happened on the area of the facility of the Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant, but we have not been able to hear of any significant fires or damage that has been caused at the moment to the reactors themselves, and it doesn't appear that there's been any sort of a radiological incident that has been occurring around the area. So generally, we're not seeing that it was a direct hit on the power plant, but it does appear that it was a hit somewhere onto the facility of the power plant that hasn't caused any critical action, or at least critical damage at the moment. We're still trying to get some more information on that. We do know that the IAEA did just confirm that the situation did happen, and that it does appear that there was some minimal damage that was caused to some facility near to the power plant, and they are asking for everyone to exercise restraint and to be able to make sure that there is no damage caused to operational energy producing nuclear power plants. Unlike other nuclear power plants like the research reactors that we've seen like IR-40 in Iraq that have been hit, nuclear energy producing power plants actually can produce a significant amount of radioactive fallout when hit. If they are hit and their boiling vessel is actually ruptured, we could see that the reaction starts to run out of control because they will no longer have control of the rods, both the fuel rods, control rods, and other rods within the reactor, which means that on top of that, the water pumps could also be affected, and if the water runs outside the reactor, the reaction could run wildly out of control until it leads to a runaway reactor, which will melt down to some extent. It could either be a partial meltdown or a full meltdown, depending on the damage and how that situation would unfold from then on. Once that happens, you're going to be seeing a fairly similar situation, at least to the Fukushima Daiichi disaster in Japan back in 2011, or the Chernobyl disaster in 1986, because the sort of radiological fallout, or the radiological sorts of, I guess you could say, elements that would be produced by that reactor would be fairly widespread and would almost be non-ending, meaning that you would have to take significant efforts to clean it up. Not only that, if the winds blew the radiological debris into the area of the Persian Gulf, we could then see that the drinking water of multiple countries like Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait, which run heavily on desalination plants, could generally be knocked out of having any usable or drinkable water due to the high radioactivity, at least compared to normal background levels of radioactivity that could be seen within the area of the Persian Gulf. So hopefully we'll see that this is not any sort of an attempt at further conducting maybe a direct attack on one of the nuclear reactors, because they could end up disastrous not just for the surrounding region inside of Iran, but for the larger amount of our allies within the Persian Gulf that rely on the Persian Gulf as their main water source. And a lot of people are currently talking about what happened around the power plant and what in the world was the message or the intention behind this attack conducted today. Was it accidental, or was it a warning, or what was it? And Matthew, what are people currently thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so now that we're hearing, and also by the way, I want to mention this little fact right here. The Iranians are the ones claiming that a missile struck Bushehr Nuclear Power Plant on the location. They're the ones claiming that, and then we heard a corroborating statement come out from a different atomic energy agency. So that's what we're going off of right now. So I mean, that's already a little bit of a shaky ground right there. But the reports claim that a missile struck on the facility's location itself. So what is the U.S. trying to do here? It looks like 24% said, that claim sounds a little bit sketchy if you ask me. 28% said the U.S. did not strike the facility and it's completely false. And 30% said the U.S. is trying to send Iran a warning that things could get out of hand if they don't back down. And I would personally say that I don't think the U.S. actually struck this facility. The IAEA came out and said there was no damage on the facility. That's what they came out and said afterward, which to me indicates somebody's telling a lie here, and it has to be Iran, because obviously Iran lies about pretty much everything. There would be some damage if a missile hit that facility. So how come there's no damage? Like debris didn't hit something. There was nothing that was actually taken out of action. Apparently nothing of that nature. So it seems like if the U.S. was trying to hit the place, that it would have probably been accurate. So to me, I think it sounds a little bit sketchy. I think Iran's probably lying about it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say there's a chance that that might have happened, but we don't know who did it. It could have been the U.S. or could have been Israel. I mean, I'd be entirely honest with y'all, folks. Whenever I hear about anything that seems somewhat questionable that happens within Iran, to be entirely honest with y'all, I lean more towards that's probably more so the Israelis than us, because if y'all have seen how the Israelis have conducted the war in the Gaza Strip, I mean, they generally don't care about civilian collateral at all, to the point it becomes criminal, the amount of civilian casualties that they inflict on the population when conducting a war. So it wouldn't be out of the question that Israel might just try and drop something near to the Bushehr nuclear power plant, and that might have actually been an Israeli ordinance instead of ours. But we don't know for sure. And right now we only have reports, and it appears that the IAEA is working off of the reports, maybe confirming that they are true at this point. But then again, there's no IAEA inspectors inside of Iran, so I guess they're largely also working as well off of any Iranian statements, considering that the Iranians don't allow IAEA inspectors into their country. So I would say that I would be with the 29%. I would believe that if anything's happened in the area and it can be confirmed, it wasn't the United States that did it. It was probably someone else, like, for example, say the Israelis, or it might have been nothing. I mean, nothing could have even happened down there, and it might just be nothing in reality. So with that, I hope that does address
It could have been a fake flag or well, a false flag. It could have been a false flag. Yeah, I see some people saying that too. They're saying, what if Israel launched the missile there on Iran and try to blame the United States for us? That way things would get really out of hand. Honestly, though, folks, and here's the catch, though. If it was a false flag, this was probably the worst possible false flag you could have pulled off because there was no damage. So there was no actual consequences from this alleged attack. That's the problem I'm having with it. If this was some type of false flag attempt, they would hit the reactor. If they were trying to do something like that, they did not hit the reactor. So it sounds like it could have just been a missile that was either off course. It may not have happened at all, or whatever. I mean, it's like everything can be a fake flag. And also, it's like, Israel in the past, I will admit, they've done some things that makes people question, where their loyalties lie sometimes. But, everything can be a false flag. Like, I just don't buy that.
I would have to definitely agree. Also, on top of that, I do have to say something really quickly, folks, because I've seen that people are going irate in the chat basically for like 40 minutes at this point since we covered it. This channel isn't political. If you don't like the comments, then that's just on you. Like, I don't really know what to tell folks who don't like our analysis here. It's straight up. I mean, we've been saying this sort of stuff for years, and then once we see something come out of it, like, we've been saying, well, treating NATO like that's probably not going to turn out well in the future. We've literally been saying that for a year, and then it comes around that it didn't turn out well in the future, and then we go, well, I mean, that's what happens. That's why you don't treat people like crap, and then people want to sit there and go off on us because we've been literally saying for a year, hey, we might not want to shit on everyone in the world. Maybe we want to back off on that, because the thing is that foreign policy is foreign policy, and I'm not going to sit there and hold back honest truths because people can't accept to hear them. Like, that's just an honest truth. I mean, if anyone was in charge, no matter who they were, and they were shitting on all of our allies endlessly, I'd be telling you, hey, that's not really a great idea. I mean, it's going to come back to bite us in the ass probably before long. It's coming back to bite us in the ass right now. I mean, like, that literally is what we're watching. And then people want to go, man, shitting on these people didn't really turn out well. F them. It's like, well, that's no way to make the situation better. You're just making it worse at that point. If you keep on saying, man, shitting on these guys is making them treat us worse, let's shit on them more, you're just going to get these people to hate us even further and do nothing. I mean, they're never going to do anything for us at that point, and we'll be entirely on our own. And then who are we going to get for allies? China? Hell, that's literally picking an enemy to be our friend. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, if you don't like it, I'm sorry for you. I don't know what to tell you, but that's the reality of why we're in this situation right now. And like we've been saying for a year, it wasn't a good idea to be crapping on our allies, because that's what happens. So it is what it is. If you don't like it, maybe you should have been, out there saying, maybe we should be a little bit more cautious about crapping on allies, because that's what we've been saying. But anyways, moving on from that. And out of that little development, we've also been able to hear some other developments and information around the area, as we were able to confirm that the United States of America did conduct significant strikes today, along with the state of Israel, inside of the area of Tehran, and it does appear that the damage is significant. From what we've been able to hear, the chief of the Besiege, Ari Larijani, has been killed, and also we've been able to confirm that apparently the Brigadier General Gholam Reza Soleimani, who was the commander of the Besiege paramilitary force as well, was also killed in an airstrike overnight in Tehran. We actually were able to see the debris field to an extent. Well, actually, that's another clip, but let me see if I can show y'all the debris field of where Ari Larijani was, at least earlier in the day. That's what's left of the area that he was in, and it appears that the building that he was inside of has largely been leveled or removed at this. We would assume that not only was Ari Larijani a loss, but whatever building he was inside of also appears to be a total loss. We are hoping that the insurance will be able to cover this loss, because not only was it significant in terms of personnel, but also in terms of structural integrity. We've also been able to hear some additional reports as well of the situation within Tehran, at least at the moment, where we've also seen that apparently the United States hit them in the night. The United States likes to hit them at night. The Israelis do day and night bombardments. We generally see the United States tries to lean more into nighttime attacks, because it really removes any questionability that there could be, say, some sort of a incident from the ground where they might shoot at us, because they can't really see us. But Matthew, what were you laughing at right there?
I was about to say, I would hate to live in Tehran right now as an Iranian official, because these targeted assassinations that keep happening over and over and over, they just happen at random parts of the city. Like at one minute it'll be in the southern part, the next minute it'll be in the northern part, and there is nowhere safe in Tehran. Like if these people come out of these bunkers that are underneath the ground inside the capital city, they are immediately a target, because there's constantly drones surveilling the entire city overhead, and the Iranians can't see them. These are stealth, but they're overhead, and they know when these people come out of hiding. So it's instantly it's time to send off a hellfire basically once they spot these people. And also, like you said, at night they've been pounding them all night long, like these days, honestly. But pause a little bit, but you know what I'm saying, though. They've been pounding them all night. The wording's a little iffy, but you know what I mean.
I mean, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. And the strikes were quite decent, I'd have to say. We've also been able to hear of an incident within Tehran. There appears to have been some sort of gunfire in the street. We don't really know what was going on in this clip, but there's some sort of incidents going on the ground in Tehran at the moment, only about 2 or 3 hours ago. We hear a large amount of screaming from the buildings, and a decent amount of people on the balconies. And it appears there might be some sort of besiege force down there in the streets that we're looking at right there near that checkpoint. And now we hear
what hell. Sounds like hell out here. It's like this,
well, we can hear some gunshots at this point.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And then the clip cuts, and we can see some larger group of what appears to be besieged personnel in the checkpoint.
Those are pretty modern apartments, I will say. Very, very oddly modern.
Yeah, I'd have to say, fairly interesting to see, for sure. But moving on from that, and out of that little clip, we've also been able to see that the United States and Israel have been targeting besiege headquarters throughout a larger area of the city. As a matter of fact, the IRGC actually showed in-color footage of one besiege checkpoint being hit and destroyed, apparently with a larger bus passing by in the midst of the strike. We can actually see that some of the vehicles below have now caught on fire and are burning. as it does appear that that besieged checkpoint was largely knocked out in one fell swoop by an Israeli aircraft directly overhead. We also were able to see another building, a besieged checkpoint that was on fire. This actually appears to be a similar one to what we just saw from the Israeli strike, but later on, once the fires have been able to really fortify themselves and build up on the streets. Moving on out of that, we have also been able to hear that on top of that, apparently, according to what we've been able to hear, and take this with a grain of salt because the Iranians do lie about a lot, that the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has stated, my last contact with Witkoff, who is the special envoy of the United States, was prior to his employer's decision to kill diplomacy with another illegal military attack on Iran. Any claim to the contrary appears to be geared solely to mislead oil traders and the public. So at the moment, the Iranian Foreign Minister is claiming that the Iranians are not in any talks whatsoever with the United States of America, but I do want to say, folks, take that one with a very significant grain of salt. As a matter of fact, to be entirely frank, I wouldn't really take any comments from the U.S. government or the Iranian government to be an actual indicator at this point that talks are ongoing. We cannot tell that either of them have engaged in talks. From what we know from every third party that's talked about it, they've been trying to get both sides to engage in talks, and both sides have been flatly refusing in the background to talk to each other at all. So we would generally believe that that's the case, but at some point or another, both sides are saying, like the Iranians will say at some point or another for propaganda, the U.S. is slither to them for talks, and then we'll say on the other hand the Iranians have crawled to us and begged for us to stop the conflict. Both of those comments, whenever they come out from either government, appear to be wildly untrue at this point, because we have seen in the background, like for example with Oman, that when Oman has tried to initiate talks between both sides, they've completely shot that concept down, which would give us our best indicator that there are literally no talks going on in the background for now, because both sides are fairly dug into their positions, and they probably have a decent amount of fervor, we know the U.S. definitely would, on continuing the conflict. And even with the Iranians taking significant losses in almost every capacity, it looks like they're still willing to keep the conflict going for now, most likely just due to ideological zeal. But a lot of people are talking about the Middle Eastern nations and their comments so far. We've actually been able to get some reports out today that the Middle Eastern nations are largely encouraging the United States to keep hitting Iran and to just keep slamming them while they're down at the moment and to try and see that the situation will improve eventually. And a lot of people are wondering, why do the Middle Eastern countries want such an action? And I have to say, folks, the answer is obvious. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so it looks like the most people, 77%, said they want Iran to actually fall, while 8% said they want to bog the USA down, and 9% said it could be a mix of both options. And the catch is, I'll be honest, I don't think the answer is actually that obvious on this one, to be perfectly honest. I don't know if all the states want Iran to fall. It's a weird thing, because if y'all notice, the Gulf states have been hit very difficultly and also very, very hard by Iran over the past couple of weeks. They've been slammed nonstop, way more than expected. So a lot of damage to these oil facilities, all the way over in even Saudi Arabia, they're getting hit. So we haven't seen any offensive actions being taken by these countries. They still have refused to go offensive on Iran and help the United States out. They're just sitting back and saying, "Yo, the United States, help us, please." It's like, well, why don't you help yourselves? It's like, I mean, we're helping. Obviously, we're going in and tending to the problem, but they're sitting there encouraging the United States to go deeper and deeper into the situation, but yet they're still not being offensive against Iran. They're just like sending kind words toward the United States and kind of like sort of just sitting in the background. So honestly, I'm with the 9%. I think it could be a mix of both. There's probably a part of these countries that wants Iran to fall, but there's also other factions that generally are kind of indifferent to Iran, despite even what they've done already. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that I would be with the 76%. They probably want Iran to actually fall, or they want to see the United States conducts enough military actions that even if Iran doesn't fall, the situation largely returns to normal. We have to remember, folks, that while the world is seeing that a lot of Middle Eastern oil isn't making it to their refineries, the Middle East is watching their oil silos fill up to the brim to the point they're having to shut down entire oil fields because they can't ship it out. And for them, that's a disaster. Most Middle Eastern countries and their economies rely entirely on exporting oil. If they can't export oil, their economies are eventually going to start going into significant depressions. For that reason, they need to see that the United States continues military actions to, at a minimum, see that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened. Otherwise, a lot of these countries are going to be absolutely economically obliterated here within the next couple of months. So that's largely why I would think that they're wanting to conduct that action. That's why I'm also saying, folks, that it's fairly obvious because it's well within their foreign policy, and not only that, their economic interests, to see that the United States hopefully hammers the Iranians into pretty much oblivion, so that way they'll see that there isn't really any existent threat to their oil shipments, and they can keep the oil flowing and keep the money flowing as a direct extension of that. So I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can, in my opinion. But I think that's generally the reason why a lot of these Middle Eastern countries are really wanting us to go in hard on continuing the conflict until the Iranians are largely destroyed in most meaningful measures. And so with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can. And I also got to say, folks, before we move on into the rest of our news tonight, I do have to say that it has been one hell of a show so far. Not only have we had an absolute influx of irate and angry people tonight, but we've had about 27,000 live viewers at the peak tonight, and about 146,000 people have watched this show in the first hour. We're entirely honored and greatly appreciative of so many of y'all, each and every single one of y'all, enjoying these shows, as we try our best to make sure to put out the news the best we can, and also keep the analysis as on point as we possibly can as well. And I have to say that we're entirely honored to know that so many people have been here and watching us tonight and have been enjoying it as usual. But before we move on into the rest of our news, as we do have more news coming out of the Middle East over the course of the day, also some fairly interesting news coming out about the Ford strike group, and also a lot of news out of Europe, I do want to make sure that we get to a couple of questions, at least 3 of them here, before we move on into the rest of the major news. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
Also, by the way, on the bots tonight, like it really has. It's been a flood of bots. Like I've been deleting bots left and right tonight. What's interesting is most of the bots tonight are mainly anti-NATO propaganda for the most part. Like, first of all, I want to say this: not everybody that has criticisms of NATO is a bot. By the way, that's not what we're saying whatsoever. Like, if you're angry at NATO for not helping the United States out in the Strait of Hormuz, I can see that argument. By the way, I'm not saying everybody's opinion is simply, oh, you're a bot if you say X, Y, and Z. That's not the case. I'm talking about people that are deliberately spreading misinformation. Like there's bots coming in here and they're saying we've been paying hundreds of billions to NATO every year. It's like we don't pay hundreds of billions to NATO every year. It doesn't work like that. Honestly, we should probably put a video out. I'm not sure if the bots would watch it because I think that would pretty much ruin their paycheck. But we got to put a video out explaining that because it's really wild. Because if you do not know much about NATO or you're not very familiar with how that alliance works, which it's somewhat complicated, you got to look into it a little bit to understand it. Then if you saw the bots' comments, it sounds trendy. It sounds, enraging to hear what the bots are saying. Most people just buy it hook, line, and sinker, and the propaganda spreads. And it's just simply not the case. But anyways, though, I digress. Moving into our first super chat of the night. This one is going to go to none other than BC Skyman. He puts in a very generous $120 support in total. And thank you very much, BC, for being a longtime channel legend and always supporting the channel. And we appreciate that very, very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, BC Skyman. You've been here for years, and I gotta say that it's a massive and wonderful thing to know that you're still here with us, enjoying the news, and also supporting the channel so that way we can keep this news running each and every single day. And I gotta thank you tremendously for that, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, before we do, I see so many people still going off. I find it interesting, folks. Let me say this really quickly. It's always funny to me how whenever something doesn't turn out good, and then we say, well, that didn't turn out good for these reasons, then it's inherently political. I find that to be hilarious, because for an entire year and 3 months, a lot of y'all have been watching this channel, and we've been saying, oh, look at that. The president just dissed on everyone in NATO again. And we're like, that's not really going to turn out well, because at some point they're going to have enough, and they're going to start screwing with us over this. And then they start screwing with us, and then what we've been saying for literally a year and 3 months and cautioning y'all about oh, that's not really going to turn out too well. Then it finally happens, and then we're like, well, that was expected, and it's not good. Like, everyone can agree it's not good. But at the same time, sitting there and acting like it's completely unwarranted, I mean, that's also a little bit stupid. Because, you would think that with how badly Europe's been treating us and shitting on us, according to some people, that because the United States is an ally, we would be there for them in Eastern Europe right now against Russia, but we're not. But then people expect the complete opposite with the Europeans on us in the Middle East. That's not how an alliance works.
Right. And also, by the way, just a real quick note, we don't want to go through the whole history of how NATO works. That would take too much time to explain that. But just to make this critical distinction right here, this destroys the bot argument right off the bat. There is no such thing as the United States propping NATO up. That does not happen that way. There is a NATO common fund that does exist, by the way. That actually is a real thing. But here's the catch. The United States only contributes 16% toward that common fund, which roughly is equivalent to about 753 million USD. So, I mean, 753 million, and we have a $1 trillion defense budget. So, I mean, that's like a drop in the bucket. That's like just some change, basically, from the United States. So that's the only amount of money that we actually pay into NATO is that 700 million, which is barely anything in the scheme of things. The actual real like benefit behind NATO is the common defense doctrine behind NATO, which means each NATO member pays 2% of their GDP toward their own defense. So that way, if NATO ever activates Article 5, the Common Defense Initiative, then all the countries are powerful enough to basically come together and defeat whatever enemy is attacking the alliance. So the United States does not fund NATO. Like everybody spreads that misinformation. Even the leadership in this country is spreading that misinformation. It's total bogus. It doesn't work like that, and it's clearly visible if you go read the NATO charter how that works. So just to make that distinction there. But Enforcer, would you like to weigh in the meantime?
Yeah, I would like to add in, folks. You gotta understand here that foreign policy is a lot like a friendship. None of y'all have one-way friendships to where one of your friends just treats you like shit and makes it out that you're completely pointless and useless, and then you're there for them every second that they need you. That's not a friendship. You're a gimp at that point. You're getting abused. So you probably need to change that relationship. That's how foreign policy works. Allies are only allies as long as the agreement is beneficial to everybody. If it's not beneficial to one side, they're going to walk away. That's what we're seeing right now. And the truth of it also, folks, just to be entirely honest, is that the last administration wasn't really that big of a friend to the Europeans either. When the Europeans were asking help from the United States, we were basically just pit-patting around, kind of waddling around trying to figure out what we were doing, which then made them start to wonder back then years ago, maybe the U.S. is becoming indecisive and they're not really an actual forefront leader of the sphere of influence that we're a part of, that they're the leader of. And then the new administrations come in and just started to actively take a hostile position on all of them and shit on them. And so with those two things combined, they're like, either the United States is so indecisive it really can't lead the sphere, or whenever a new administration comes in, they become so hostile to us that it may as well be like being in a sphere of influence with an enemy nation. So then we might as well leave. And if you have a friendship like that, that's not a good one. I mean, like if you ever looked at that in any normal human setting and you were the person who was having to deal with that, you wouldn't like it either. And that's what we're saying right here. There's nothing political about that. We've been saying this for an entire year because foreign policy has direct inputs and outputs. And some people are about to say, oh, he's just saying words. Here's the thing, though. In foreign policy and in politics and everything in general, while sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you, in diplomacy, words hurt more than actions most times. Sitting there and telling people that are completely pointless is more devastating than probably bombing them just out of the blue one day, from what we can see. I mean, if you ever go out of your way to just tell people that they're crap in foreign policy, they're going to take you at your word, because very rarely in the world does someone say, you're full of shit, and then they start shooting you instantly. So if they say you're full of shit, they basically are saying we're about to get to shooting you, and then at that point, you go, well, I don't really like those people anymore. I mean, they're not really our friends. And that's how it works. Like, I hope that people are understanding here, the sorts of implication. And also another thing is that some people aren't even getting it, that if you treat them like shit, and then they clearly show that they don't like being treated like shit, the answer isn't to start shitting on them even harder. Because you know what that's going to do? Because we use our brains here, which some of us have been provided, we can kind of figure out where that's going based off of the trend here right now. If you keep shitting on them, they're just going to keep shitting on us even harder. So then we just keep going down this secular path to where we just keep digging our own grave here in this Western Alliance, to where they hate our guts and we hate theirs. It's not going to be a good position to be in. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Okay, so moving into our second super chat, and also, by the way, we have big news coming up out of Europe as well, by the way, so stick around for that. Our second super chat here goes to Campbell Soup, who puts in a 100, and thank you very much, Campbell Soup, for that very generous support as well, and we do appreciate that very, very much. And they said, what are the chances that this goes nuclear, and does it line up with the doomsday prophecies and UFO coming in 2027?
And I thank you massively for the support. I would say that the chances of this war in the Middle East going nuclear are probably fairly low. There really isn't any sort of an imminent or existential threat posed to the United States for us to use nuclear weaponry. So for that reason, I'd say that the nuclear conflict's highly unlikely. They also don't have a nuclear weapon. We've acted in time to where they wouldn't be able to develop and field a nuclear weapon. So generally, this has no chance of really becoming nuclear. And as far as a dirty bomb being used, that's also highly unlikely as well, at least to this point, inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran, because they really can't access their fissile material either, because they basically buried at this point with themselves not even having access to it. So I would say that it's highly unlikely, and generally I'm not one to fall under like the doomsday prophecy thing. Like, just to let y'all know, in like our personal lives, our entire life growing up, like basically anyone who was older than us, like, you know, anyone that you kind of look up to, they would always say that the end of the world was coming that year because it's all over. And once you live through that for like 20 something years and it never happens, you kind of get to the point where it's like, okay, we're just like, no matter what, you just have to keep trucking for it. I mean, if the end of the world is coming, so what? You know, it's like people that got bills to pay, mouths to feed, we've got a nation to run. So, you know, it's like if it is coming around, you know, what are we supposed to do about it? It doesn't really change much of anything.
Well, you know, the weird part is about the whole end times thing, by the way, because me personally, I generally don't subscribe to the whole end times thing. Like, if and what I mean by that is, I don't let myself fall into a mindset of, oh, it's the end's like right around the corner, so I might as well just give up. I don't think like that. If the end is right around the corner, I'll keep going till normally until the very end, and it'll just end whenever it ends. That's the way I look at it. But also, there was a poll that came out that Americans, it's up to like 39% of Americans believe that we're in doomsday end times, which is crazy. I mean, that's getting close to almost half the country that thinks that, and that's in the recent polling data, which is kind of crazy. So it's really disturbing. Like, just from a morale perspective, there are a lot of Americans that believe the economy is about to collapse. There's now 39% of Americans that believe that the end times are here. Just that alone, psychologically, is bad, because obviously, you know, when people start thinking that, they immediately start thinking, well, hell, what am I working towards if it's all about to come to a stop? It's like, I mean, you got to keep going. I mean, even if you know the end's near, which we don't even know if the end's near, I think this is the perception that people have about uncertainty. They start automatically thinking about the worst case scenario, which honestly, I do the same thing myself, but we got to get past that basically. But it's disturbing to see that trend.
Honestly, folks, here's how I look at it. Like, we're like basically every single day of our lives and our existence, whether you're living here in America, living in some other country that's one of our allied nations, or you're in, just speaking of the nation at large, every single day we wake up, it's a boxing match that goes on until it goes on from the very beginning of the day till midnight at the end of that day, every single day. And the fight's not over until the bell rings, and the bell hasn't rung yet. So why in the world act like we just need to stop fighting in the ring because the bell is probably about to ring at some point in the future, and we have no clue when? That's no way to keep a nation running, and that's no way to keep a people running either. We are going to keep fighting in this nation until the bell rings. Who knows what that will be, and when it will be, and what for? But when that bell rings, then it'll be over. But it ain't over yet, and so we're going to keep it going until the bell rings. That's how I look at it. You know, I just don't really know why a lot of people are always like, oh, it's coming around, so let's all drop everything and sit on our asses for it to end. It's like, well, you know, it's like, that's no way to look at the thing. It's like, you know, hell, we got a lot to do. We still just from a point of pride, it's like, what type of pride do people have in their nation and their people when they just lay everything down and just wait for the end? It's like, what a loser. You know, it's like, we ought to keep going until the thing's done. I mean, literally, no joke, folks. We just got done having to fly all the way around the country and everything to go take care of business. I've gotten about 3 hours of sleep in the past 48 hours, and how I view it is, the bell hasn't rung and the fight's still on. We're going to run a show even after coming off of a plane, after 12 hours of flying around all day, and then getting like 3 hours of sleep before that, no sleep the last day, and so on and so forth. Like, things have to keep running, things have to keep rolling, and that's just how it is. So I can't tell you about, you know, the end coming around in the Middle East, but for now it's not here. It might be here tomorrow, but if it comes around tomorrow, then we'll figure it out when that happens. But for now, the war is still on, the nation is still running, and tomorrow will be a new day, and we have to keep fighting on that new day and make sure that the flag still stands. That's just how it works. But a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. Keep it running and keep the old flag flying. And so with that, it's time for us, I believe, to move on to the last one, if I'm not mistaken, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news.
Yeah, so the last super chat here of the segment goes to Josh Loves Idaho, who puts in a $50 support. And thank you very much, Josh, for that 50. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And he said, I heard our current administration has a plan B. They plan on wooing our allies' help by singing them a song. It's a baby come back. Baby come back. It's like I think this is a song right here. Sadly, I don't even want to like read the lyrics, but it's going to sound cringy as hell. That was already cringy enough just doing that little segment right there. But honestly, like some people look at being diplomatic as being a wuss. That's what's like today. It's like this, like I'm not a real man unless I like strong arm somebody and tell them I'm the man. It's like a real man doesn't have to go around, acting like a fool, like a clown to try to prove that they're dominant over other people. You don't have to do that. We should show some respect. I mean, that's a real man to me. If you can show respect and still get your way, even under circumstances of being on equal footing like that, that's as good as it gets, in my opinion. No need to go around, strong arming people and twisting arms. That's not the way friends and alliances work. That's the way enemies work, which never leads to anything good. But Enforcer, what say you?
I mean, I would definitely agree. Something that's funny, folks, is that people always talk about, oh, America gives off its shirt to Europe. Well, here's something that's kind of funny, folks. Y'all remember back in the day when the Germans were being run by this little guy called Adolf, and then we ended up beating him and his country in the Second World War, and we ended up occupying a significant part of it with Britain and France. What's crazy is that we kicked their ass, and they killed hundreds of thousands of Americans in Europe during that time when we landed in Italy and also in France in honestly, hell, ever since North Africa back in 42. And once we rolled into Germany, what's crazy is that we beat their ass and they killed a whole lot of other guys, and then we still paid them. Like nowadays people would say, what kind of sense does that make? We should punish them for what they did. But what's crazy is that right after the end of World War II, we came up with this crazy thing called the Marshall Plan, and we literally just started throwing money at the Germans. I mean, like, if you think about that, in the modern day, people would be sitting there and talking about how much of a big bitch the United States is for beating the Germans and then giving them money. And the thing of it is, folks, is that was actually the smartest thing that we could have ever done, because what happened is that the Soviet Union took approach that people these days take of that you got to punish people and screw them, and then they still have to be an ally. At East Germany became a shriveled up little nub of Germany, still is to this day because of how the Soviets treated them. On the other hand, West Germany became the most prosperous and wealthiest part of Europe. Not only that, Germany is now the largest economy in Europe because of what we did for them back then. And you know what we get out of that, folks? We get a lot out of it. We get a whole bunch of automobiles. We get a whole bunch of aircraft parts. We get a whole bunch of weapon systems and such from Germany that we don't really produce here, like optics and sights and such. We get a great deal out of Germany. We get a great deal out of a lot of our allies over there in Europe. And it's a position of being friendly with people and trying to reconcile things and smooth things over and keep things rolling. But of course, looking for a fair thing. You don't want to get steamrolled by everyone. You want it to be fair. But at the same time, you got to be fair back to them. That's how the world's been turning for 80 years. And a lot of people will sit there and go, for 80 years, they've leached off of us. It's like, well, even if you're right, what's there to show for it? I mean, we have the largest economy and the largest military on the planet. I mean, if you're speaking about economics and that of warfare, I mean, we're on top of the world right now. No nation on the planet has ever even come close to this. Maybe the only other one is Rome. And if you put the Roman Empire up against the United States today, that'd be basically like putting cavemen up against us. It would be a one-sided fight. And then what does Europe have to show for quote unquote leeching on the United States? Well, they're the second largest military and economic power on the planet as well. I mean, if that's leeching, that was a pretty damn good outcome for leeching.
And you know what they say? People have to go around all the time trying to prove they're a real man, their dominance and stuff like that. You know what they say. You know what they say about the people like that. It's like it's basically going around and saying like, "Am I a real boy, Papa?" It's like, bro, it's like, chill out. It's like, you're like, how old is this guy? Like 75, 80 years old. It's like, brother, you've lived a long life. It's like, you don't have to go around like, running your mouth at people and stuff like that 24/7. It's like, what are we trying to prove? Like, nobody's disputing that the United States is the most powerful military on the planet. Nobody disputes that. People that run around being loudmouths, they're usually making up for something. And like the U.S. has nothing to make up for. It's like we're the most powerful country on the planet. Well, we need to make good decisions. Like if you make bad decisions, even with our mighty firepower, things can go sideways. So you got to be careful with stuff like that. But I just don't know. Like I just don't understand it. I guess we'll never understand it, but we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But generally, folks, the better approach is to always try and treat our allies well, Because if you treat people well, they'll treat you well back. But there's no such thing as a one-way street, and there's no such thing, as everybody knows, as a free lunch. You can't shit on people and then ask for a free lunch from them. That's not going to be happening. You got to give them something, and then they might give you a free lunch, and everyone knows that the free lunch isn't free anyways. But with that, it is time for us to move on to the rest of the news that we did get out of the Middle East today. And also, really quickly, Matthew, I do have to mention this on air really quickly. We were supposed to be getting the names and faces of those airmen who died in the unfortunate crash of the KC-135. I wasn't able to find that before the show, and I don't mean to put any burden on you, but if you could try and find that for us, I'd like to make sure to mention their names on the show at some point, considering that they are now confirmed fatalities on the side of the U.S. forces. So we'll be seeing...
That was the tanker crash, the KC-130, you said?
Yeah, that was the tanker crash. I believe 5 airmen died in that crash, so we need to see if we can get their names. I couldn't find them anywhere before the show, but if we could get their names during the show and you repost it, either on the main Twitter or under the likes tab, we'll make sure to get their names and faces and read off our casualty report that we have for all of y'all, because it appears that it came out on Sunday, and we weren't able to get it before the show, and some people mentioned that, and then we, of course, had to get to taking care of business afterwards. But I do want to make sure to show their faces, names, and speak about them for a brief moment, considering that we've been able to hear that there's been another large loss of life for the U.S. Armed Forces within the region. But moving on from that, we have been able to hear within our Gulf state allies that the Islamic Republic of Iran is still conducting a significant amount of drone and missile fire onto our allies throughout the region, including that of the Kurds within northern Iraq. We were able to see footage today showing that a Kurdish facility within the area of Erbil has actually been hit and has rapidly caught on fire, as we can see in that clip right there, showing us that once again the Islamic Republic of Iran is posing a threat to a significant amount of our allies in the region. Meanwhile, we also were able to confirm that the U.S. Embassy within Iraq was targeted again, and it does appear that there is a fire occurring near to that area at the moment. We also were able to see some CRAM air defense action around the city of Baghdad from U.S. forces as well. That's the end of that clip.
Oh, that sound back there. That sound. I haven't even served in the military, and every time I hear that incoming sound in the background, like, I don't know why, that has like a horrifying effect. It's almost like that sound that comes on when there's like a tornado warning or something like that. I don't know what's up with that tone, but it kind of like freaks me out, and I hadn't even served.
Yeah, I mean, there's some just really alarming about that noise. We also were able to see that there were some U.S. and Israeli airstrikes that were targeting pro-Iranian militias just north of Baghdad today as well. Quite some significant ones. You can see them still raining down. We can also hear what appeared to be a fire truck horn there for a moment. And we see the smoke continuing to rise in the distance. With that, that's the end of that clip, and moving us on from that, and on out of the area of Iraq, and moving us down into Saudi Arabia, we've actually been able to hear, interestingly enough, that Ukraine has sent 201 Shahed experts to the Middle East. These are military specialists who know how to defend against and help counter Shahed drones. Our teams are already in the UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, and are also on their way to Kuwait. The U.S. has flatly refused any help and assistance from the Ukrainians, but it appears that a larger amount of our Gulf allies have actually openly accepted Ukrainian support and assistance, and we now understand that around a two-company-sized element of about 201 men of the Ukrainian armed forces are currently down there in the Middle East right now, and the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other nations, helping them to try and defend against the incoming Iranian drones. It's great to see that the Ukrainians are more than willing to try and offer to help and are actively helping at the moment, because it is once again showing us right now that the state of Ukraine is a pretty decent ally to work with. Even with them not being in NATO, they're trying to do everything they can to help out the greater Western and American sphere, and to see that it eventually comes out on top, even through their own direct support and efforts. Once again, scratching Ukraine's back is generally scratching ours in an extent, especially for our allies in the region. We've also been able to see that within the area of Dubai, there were some incoming missiles in this area today, which it appears the footage was able to come out for. It was a fairly large number, showing that there is some decently elevated amounts of TEL activities over just the prior amount of times, because we're starting to see that there is a fairly considerable amount of missiles that were fired over the day, possibly suggesting that the Iranians had pulled a couple of inactive TELs out of storage that we had not accounted for in our reports and are attempting to use them in higher volumes. But moving on from that clip, we also have that picture here showing the incoming Iranian missiles. Moving on out of Dubai and moving on over and into Israel, we have also been able to hear of some pretty interesting news coming out of the area of Tel Aviv. For one, we were able to see that the Iranians are starting to use a fairly large number, and basically this is the only munition they're using at this point, of cluster rounds against the Israelis. The cluster rounds have largely proven... Yeah, I was muting that. The cluster rounds have largely proven to be almost indefensible against, because it provides such a high amount of incoming aerial threats of a larger caliber that the Israelis really can't deal with, meaning that the Iranians have been able to cause a significant amount of damage to the Tel Aviv city area. We were able to confirm damage within some city streets, including this one right here, or you can see some of those cluster rounds making impact. We hear the people continuing to speak in shock about the explosion. We can see the smoke rising from one of those cluster munitions. And that's the end of the clip, but still showing us a strike within northern Tel Aviv. We also were able to see a last-moment interception right over the city of Tel Aviv in this clip right here as well. And there was the interception. I mean, absolutely crazy.
What the fuck?
Damn.
Man, this guy was so shocked, he stopped speaking Hebrew and started speaking English.
Man,
I mean, like, dang.
What's up with that? It's like in all these videos where it's like something happening like in the Middle East, it's like they go from like, it's either like speaking like Farsi or speaking Hebrew or something, and then it immediately goes to the curse words are in English. It's like we get like an instant translation for the curse words.
Man, they'll be out there going, Hotshot Salim! God dang! Man, it's like, dang, okay. But you're also able to unfortunately confirm further damage within Tel Aviv near to a metro station or a train station within the city. Here's that clip. See them here walking in and looking around, showing what appears to be an Israeli Railways locomotive that has taken damage along with the station.
Sure.
Damn, it's kind of a rare hit actually to like damage the infrastructure that badly.
Yeah, it really is, honestly.
The hell was that?
I don't even know. But we see them continuing to show the damage to the front of the power unit here. And that's the end of the clip. It's still showing us that there has been some direct impacts within Tel Aviv. We've also been able to report that near to the area of Jerusalem, the Israeli government has announced that they will be trying to find a way and try to track down and neutralize this new supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, who has been reported to be taking up certain forms of activities in his free time, which has apparently brought much comedy to some. But we've also been able to hear within the area of southern Lebanon that Hezbollah has been launching their own rocket barrages against northern Israel and an attempt to start overwhelming the remaining elements of the Israeli air defense. You see one of those rockets right there.
Sounds like they're begging for that Lebanon invasion to take place.
Man, honestly, man, it seems like they're cruising for a bruising. Oh.
Oh my, they said please invade our home, please.
Man, they said, it's not good enough that this war is up with Iran. We want that smoke too. And they about to get it. Oh, man. But moving on from that, we've also been able to see that the IDF and Hezbollah have been engaging in somewhat heavier firefights along the border. Listen to the sound of that firefight. Oh! Oh!
Damn.
I'm not gonna lie, they letting it loose!
Damn. Sounds like my hometown.
Meanwhile, over at Satrial's in New York, hey, T, did you hear about that new supreme leader? I guess you could say he is gracing the union. But anyways, moving on from that, it is time for us to finally get on out of the Middle East, folks, because we do have a lot going on down there, but there's a lot going on in the rest of the world. Like, for example, today, we were able to hear that the Pakistanis apparently struck a hospital in Afghanistan. We haven't been able to get a confirmed fatality report so far, but it appears that, unfortunately, 400 civilians died from what the Taliban's claiming in that strike. I wasn't able to show you all the video evidence of that strike today. It wasn't quite gruesome gruesome. But it appears that a large amount of civilians were killed in the airstrike, and now the Taliban's vowing, although we haven't really seen that they've had an ability to do this so far, they're vowing that they're going to start slamming the Pakistanis. So that will be coming up here possibly in the future, that the conflict will increase in intensity between those two countries because of that incident today. We've also been able to hear, moving us on down and into the area of the northern Red Sea, of something that is absolutely crazy. And I do have to report this to y'all, and also, Matthew, hopefully we've been able to get those casualties as well, so that way we can talk about them here in a moment. But outside of that, we were able to hear that the USS Gerald R. Ford has been largely put out of action, not from Iranian fire, not from any fire. Well, it was a fire, but it wasn't enemy fire. It was actually laundry fire. We can now confirm, folks, that whatever laundry company provided the washing machines on board the USS Gerald R. Ford is apparently deadlier than that of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The USS Gerald R. Ford is heading back to Suda Bay, Crete for repairs. From what we've been hearing, according to the official story that's come out at the moment, the fire that happened in the laundry berth actually was a lot more major than was originally claimed. And around 600 berths inside the vessel, which is where the crew actually sleeps, were actually burned out in the process of the fire. And for that reason, the damage has been so significant that a larger amount of the crew members have actually had to resort to sleeping on the floor or sleeping on tables in the mess hall of the vessel to be able to try and just get some sleep somewhere, because they've had nowhere to sleep, and a lot of their personal belongings were also consumed or enveloped by the fire as well, meaning that some of these guys haven't even had basic toiletries to work with, say toothbrushes such as that, because all of that was burned out as well in the fire near to their berths, because they keep their personal effects at their berths. So at the moment, it's going to be heading back to Suda Bay, Crete, which is right near to Chania, right here. It's actually this little bay right here, and they'll be trying to effect some repairs, so they'll probably try and smack in some new beds, maybe spray it down with a hose, so that way they can try and get some of the ash off the walls, so that way at least it's minimally operational, and then they'll be sending them back into the theater. They'll be able to be covered at the moment by the George H.W. Bush, which is expected to be arriving here in the near future. But I'm not going to lie, folks. I think a lot of people on the Gerald R. Ford are not going to be re-enlisting, because we have to remember, one, they're about to reach the carrier deployment record ever since World War II for the longest carrier deployment in length of time. And not only that, a lot of them now for about a week and a half have literally been sleeping on hard tables and floorboards, well, really more so the deck plating of the ship, in the middle of the night, in lit corridors that are never, like, the lights never turn off in those corridors or the mess hall or anywhere, just having to sleep there and live in basically just abject conditions, almost like we were in those airports. But outside of that, I have a feeling that a lot of those people are going to be rather unhappy with getting their deployment extended this long, and now on top of that, having to deal with this situation. So a little bit unfortunate.
I think that might be why. And also, by the way, I don't understand why people were griping about this, but the Department of War bought a whole bunch of like lobster and steak and stuff like that, and everybody was complaining, "Oh, what are they doing, spending this much money?" It's like they're not eating it themselves. Like the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War, whatever you want to call him, he's not horking down the lobster. It's like it's going to the troops that are being deployed. They're getting like a Friday night meal that's not like a nice lobster meal or something like that, because they're obviously overseas and their life's in danger every single day. So it's like, in the midst of all this, hopefully they're getting something that's a morale booster out of it, like, for example, some lobster or steak or something. I think that's probably the least of our concerns when it comes to U.S. spending.
Man, some people in America said, "What? The soldiers are eating food? Let them eat gruel." It's like, what the hell? It's like,
why are we going to complain about feeding the soldiers good? It's like, I mean, if you were over there and you were fighting and your life was on the line every single day, I mean, I wouldn't mind a little lobster. I'd probably be the highlight of the day, based on the rest of the day that kind of sucks.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, it's like, what the hell's the problem of them having some steak and lobsters? It's like, it's like, hell, it's like, like just being upfront, folks. Like, I get that some people are not really happy about the Secretary of Defense. I know a lot of people in the military don't really like him, but at the same time, if he was eating billions of dollars of pasta and lobster, I think that guy would be so fat he wouldn't fit in the Pentagon, and that's not really the case. I mean, no one can even physically eat that much food on their own. It's not like he's running like banquets or anything. It's like, this is food for the soldiers of the Republic. It's like, of course it's going to cost a lot of money. There's about 1.2 million of them in active service right now. You have to feed all of them. So, obviously it's going to cost a lot of money. But outside of that, Also, Matthew, by the way, I went and checked this. It appears that we do have their names, but we don't have their positions. We actually heard, folks, that unfortunately, I believe 5 of these members of the service were actually from the air wing. Well, were near from the air wing in Birmingham, Alabama, which is where our prior HQ was, which is incredibly unfortunate. But I will be able to read off their names, but I cannot tell you all their ranks or where they're from because unfortunately that wasn't provided. But we were able to hear.
It's actually listed at the very top of the article in the second paragraph.
Um, the second, I'm not seeing, like, I see their names below the, oh, wait, hang on. Oh, here we go. So sorry, I actually didn't catch that originally. So let me go ahead and read that for y'all. So here are the casualty reports. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show their faces either because this is from the BBC, and they might try and copyright us showing their website. So I cannot show you all their faces, but here are their names. John Klinner, age 33 from Alabama. 31-year-old Ariana Savino from Washington. Ashley Pruitt, age 34 from Kentucky. 38-year-old Seth Koval from Indiana. And Ohio native Curtis Angst, age 30. And Tyler Simmons, aged 28. His location of origin is unknown. But those were the 6 Air Force personnel that did unfortunately die in the crash of the KC-135 that went down near to the area of the Saudi-Iraqi border several days ago, which we saw the fireball of when it broke up in air. And then we got the confirmation, unfortunately, later that all airmen had died in the crash that were on board the aircraft. It's wildly unfortunate to hear of something like that. Hopefully we'll be able to see that U.S. operational procedures are changed to ensure that such an unfortunate incident doesn't happen again, because to put it into perspective for everybody, that's almost about 50% of the casualties, actually fatalities more so, that have been caused in the conflict so far were caused by an in-air collision between 2 U.S. aircraft. Hopefully we'll be able to see that that does not happen again. It's always unfortunate to hear of such incidents leading to such a significant loss of life, but it is important to remember that those soldiers are citizens of this nation that were serving in the name of this republic, and we're attempting to see that the United States will be able to continue to stay on top due to our preemptive actions in our interest and the safety of our citizenry inside the Middle East. So an incredibly unfortunate thing to hear, and I hope that their families understand that the nation grieves with them, and it's wildly unfortunate to always hear of the loss of service members and citizens of the Republic. But moving on out of that, it is time for us to get on out of the Middle East and on into the rest of our news. We were able to hear some comments out of Washington today about the situation with NATO, but I'll be entirely honest with y'all folks, that was beat to death basically in the beginning hour of the show, so I think we'll largely just skip over that and just move on. Moving us on out of Washington, we are going to be moving on into the area of Paris, where we were able to hear that the French put up the statement today that they would not be taking part in the conflict. They stated that they were going to be preparing operations to escort vessels once hostilities end, but they will not be actively engaging in the conflict so far. Additionally, we've also been able to hear out of Brussels today that the European Union has approved 90 billion euros in a loan for Ukraine after overcoming Hungary's veto. This $90 billion loan will be used to provide Ukraine with significant amounts of weapon systems and munitions that will be used by the state of Ukraine in the war against the Russian Federation. One that's been going on for well over 4 years at this point, and has continued to see that the Russian Federation is generally being put on the back foot, especially in the present day. Outside of that, the Ukrainians also participated in another NATO military exercise today, and crazily enough, NATO conducted a military exercise, folks, that's wildly interesting. He actually, from what I know, had no restrictions on either side and just allowed them to fight how they fight. And so it was NATO forces operating under conventional NATO doctrine versus the Ukrainians in a NATO naval exercise. And what is absolutely crazy, folks, is that the Ukrainians operated so quickly that they destroyed the NATO vessels in the military exercise before they even knew it. And according to what came out afterwards, one of the NATO vessels asked, "Are you going to attack us now or not?" and hadn't even known that they were a confirmed kill and had already been targeted and destroyed by the Ukrainians prior in the war game from how rapidly it happened in quick succession. So
I mean, that's insane if you really think about it, because Ukraine doesn't really have a navy. That's the problem. So the fact that a country without a navy defeated the NATO allies with, obviously they have navies, that's a bad sign.
yeah, what's interesting about that is that Ukraine, while they don't have a navy, they excel in littoral range naval warfare because that's where they basically cultivated their skills, is in the Black Sea. And from what we know, this military exercise was either conducted in the North Sea or in the Baltic. I wasn't able to get the exact information, but it was somewhere around there, which is fairly similar in a lot of ways in size to the Black Sea. So they were able to exploit that sort of a short range littoral sort of a zone, if we want to call it that, and we're actually able to lay waste to all of the NATO forces that were in that exercise quite easily. I mean, I got to be honest with y'all, folks. A lot of people sleep on the Ukrainians, but because the Ukrainians have been so well battled and experienced over the past 4 years in the air, on the ground, and at sea, they've been able to develop some of the most advanced battle doctrines in the world, especially those that work off of autonomous drones, whether they be aircraft, ground vehicles, or vessels. And I mean, the Ukrainians are truly a threat to be feared, and I think a nation to be respected. I'd say that's why we should be giving them a lot of military support, because if we could see that Ukraine survives this war intact, which they will, and hopefully in a better condition than not, thanks to our support, we could definitely take a lot of that knowledge and implement it into the U.S. Armed Forces. Which, imagine us right now with the conventional capabilities we have, then having a well and true understanding of modern drone warfare as the Ukrainians see it, with the kind of industrial production that we could conduct as well. I mean, we are already a pretty formidable and unstoppable force. We would quite truly at that point be unstoppable by every measure. At least for any adversary that we would see in the world like China or Russia, they wouldn't really be able to stand a chance if we were able to implement what the Ukrainians have now learned into the entirety of our armed forces and all of our branches. That's why, folks, you can't pick and choose enemies of our sphere or enemies of our sphere. That's why we should be helping out Europe and helping out Ukraine, because not only is it in their interest, it's heavily in our interest to learn how war is fought these days by countries that are largely on the cutting edge. But moving on from that, it is time for us to move on into Russia, or as they call it in English, Russia, or the Rossiyski Federatsy. It's time for us to move on into St. Petersburg. We were able to hear today they shut down the internet up there for security reasons. Huh. I wonder what. I wonder what those security reasons are, man. Shutting down the internet in Moscow and St. Petersburg, the two largest cities in Russia. What in the world could that be for?
Yeah, it's a little interesting too because we had heard before that Moscow's mobile internet had been shut down, like in central Moscow. That was the first sign of trouble. And now it's spread to St. Petersburg. And not only is it the mobile internet, but now they're saying they're restricting home internet as well. So they're expanding it to other connection points, which is kind of interesting as well. So, I mean, also, by the way, I'm hearing reports that Telegram is not accessible inside of Russia anymore. I'm not totally sure if it's that way across the whole country, but I've seen some Russians claiming that they can't get on Telegram anymore because the Russians are trying to force the people into the Max Messenger app, which is obviously not a very good app. There's already some massive problems being shown with that, which I think most people already knew about. But it's a very tricky thing. Putin seems to be getting very paranoid.
I'd have to say, it does seem like he's getting fairly paranoid. We also did get to hear about that report today, speaking of which, where it does appear that Telegram has largely been shut down across the country. And we also got to see something interesting today from Messenger Max. Apparently, everyone who's getting on Messenger Max is auto-subscribed to Vladimir Solovev, who's a huge Russian propagandist that we call the devil. And then what's even crazier is that when they try and unsubscribe, it physically will not unsubscribe them. Ever.
Oh my God, man. Oh my God. That single-handedly made this app 30 times worse. It's bad enough that the Russians are pushing people in it. Now you can't unsubscribe from the master propagandist. That is awful.
I mean, dude, literally they have a slot machine of Russian propaganda that you're auto-subscribed to and cannot unsubscribe from. That really lets you know what the real intention behind that system is, propaganda and also surveillance. We've also been able to hear that Russia is increasing its support for Iran, according to some information from the Wall Street Journal, and is expanding intelligence sharing and military cooperation with Iran. Outside of that, we've also been able to see something very interesting in the streets of inner Moscow. This is near to Kremlin, by the way. Here's a clip. What do we have here?
Russian criminal.
What is this group of men down here on the street, Bliet? Can we get a closer look? That looks to be the forces of the Oman, probably. The Oman, by the way, folks, are a special police force within Russia, usually armed. Most Russian police, from what I understand, actually are not that well armed, but the Oman is a special exception. I'm sure a lot of y'all know about them. Let me go pull up the Oman for y'all. When y'all see their uniforms, you'll know who I'm talking about. They are the riot police, or the special police, really, in Russia, for emergency situations. Here's another one of them. Good God, dude. This guy's got a 60-round, double-stack AK-74 mag. That is mental.
And that's for the people.
Man, they said, "What are you doing?" "I work in city sanitation." "Oh, really? What do you do?" "Street sweeping, but with machine gun." It's like, oh, it's
Man,
like,
it's like, is it a bad thing that the Russian police forces that are intended to be used on the domestic Russian population are better armed than the people on the front lines?
let me see if I can find another picture of them when they have their arms. Because sometimes they are deployed folks unequipped, with generally just, this, and also what appears to be boob pads for some reason that are on all of their vests. Kind of a little odd. But let me see here. Trying to see if I can find you all the armed guys, because, oh, dang, they don't really like to show them off that much these days. Yeah, that doesn't really show them. Damn. Oh, well, I mean, here's a guy with a. That's not the Oman, though. Um, and that's the Oman from the
I'm not gonna
90s.
lie, that photo right there kind of goes hard. Like they got that old school filter and that thing right there. The
Man,
actual forces in the picture don't go hard, but I mean the picture goes hard.
man, that night vision scope right there is probably about as heavy as that rifle. Like honestly, man, like they're pretty heavy. But outside of that, though, we understand that the Oman is now being put in the streets in Moscow, and a lot of people are starting to wonder, why in the world are the Oman just wandering around in large throngs in Moscow? That's not normal. Usually they're only deployed in fairly specific circumstances. So, Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so now that we're seeing that Putin deployed more troops near the Kremlin, we're also hearing about new speech crackdowns, specifically when it comes to using apps like Telegram, etc. This is an ongoing situation. This is not new. We've been covering this for over a week, so it's just getting worse as the days go by. It seems like Putin's cracking down further and further, and we're not exactly sure what the exact reason is, but we kind of have some ideas about why this could be. But where do you think this is going to go? Because obviously it seems to be escalating. 39% said Russia will suffer a coup in less than 6 months, while about 26% said there will be no coup, and then about 24% said Russia will suffer a coup in more than 6 months, actually. So I would personally say this. Something is about to happen because the way they're escalating this, and they're also trying to force everybody into the state-run applications on their phones, and also try to block everybody out of pretty much anything that gives them outside contact. That is something that Russia's doing to prevent some type of overthrow in their country. But here's the problem, though: by banning people off of Telegram, they are literally creating the problem they're trying to prevent. Because so far, we've seen the frontline forces and also the Russian military. They are irate that they're being kicked off of Telegram. They're going berserk over that, and they absolutely hate Max Messenger, which is the Russian app that they're trying to push. So I think they're actually causing the problem that they're trying to prevent. So part of it is probably because the mass mobilization is probably coming. That's probably part of the reason they're doing this. And then another part of it is there could be some rumblings that maybe troops are getting tired of being thrown into a meat grinder, and they're trying to get ahead of that by forcing people off of Telegram. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to say that I think that the Russians are highly scared of some sort of a civil uprising or an attempted military coup or a mutiny within the future, and that's why they're starting to conduct all of these major actions, because none of this is normal, folks. We've hardly ever seen the Russians do anything, much less all of these in combination. And so that's giving us an idea that something must be going on in the background where they believe there's an internal security threat to be able to take these actions. So I hope that does address it the best I can, because I'll be entirely frank with y'all. It looks like it's about to get cooking up in Russia. And I mean, really cooking. Meanwhile, the Russians are trying to cook up their next generation of drone pilots. Let's observe in the military university how this went. Today, I will demonstrate to you how to fly drone. We simply go up like this, see, very simple, and hit roof, slam it to desk, great success.
It works well. That must be that new interceptor model.
Man, you see, it intercept roof tile. See, that roof tile, not good. Ukrainsky, bad tile. We fly it up, hit tile, desk, it's a success.
Honestly, those roof tiles are built pretty solid. Actually, that thing didn't budge an inch after that thing smashed it.
Man, also, what does this say right here?
Hold on, let me get the translation. I'll get you a translation on this. Keep it on the screen and stall for a second.
We are stalling. Whoop, 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 whoop. Stall rate. Pull up. Pull up. Oh, man. Let's see here. Let's see. Oh, and so, oh, man. Oh, come on, Michael. Be real. Be real. I mean, I could go off. I could go off on that one. I mean, I just saw some in the chat. I was like, how ridiculous.
Yeah.
Come on. What was it say?
Boy, Yeah, on the screen though, it says how to become part of the BVS troops. So it's apparently a slideshow or like a presentation on how you can join the unmanned forces of Russia. Apparently, that's at least what the translation's showing on my end. So it appears to be this guy brought along basically a recruitment slide deck along with this drone that he just smashed into the ceiling of whatever this is.
Hey kids, you want to see how experienced the pilots of the drone forces are? Check it out.
Also, by the way, that thing sounds heavy as hell. You heard that clunk it made when it hit that table? That thing sounds like it's like a dumbbell.
Also, man, that thing broke apart like a Lego set. I mean, watch when it hits the desk. There's like little pieces of it that are literally sitting on the desk now.
Look at this guy recovering. Watch him. Like he's checking the roof tiles. Oh man, this is awkward as hell. Where's he going? He's just going to leave.
Bro,
He's
he looked up
I'm
the
gonna
ceiling.
head out. He said, "I'm gonna head out. I'm leaving now." Honestly, I don't blame him. I'll leave too after that.
Bro, he said, you know what, everyone, I just realized they have a meeting to get to. And he just started walking away while double checking the roof ceiling. Look at him, man. When he's walking off, he double checked the roof ceiling. He's like, is it really screwed up? Watch, like, see,
Like,
at least.
I just remembered. I just remembered. I left my toolkit in the car. I'll be right back. It's like he's never coming back. Trust me.
Guys, this isn't actually the real drone I was supposed to use. The real drone is out in the car. I've got to go really quickly. That roof is after. Anyways, I'll see you all around. It's like, man, yeah, I'm ripping. Honestly, man, I don't even know what to make of that. It's just comical these days, really comical. But moving on from that, folks, it's time for us to get on down to the Russian Don. We were able to see near to the Kerch Bridge, there was a little friendly fire incident. Looks like some air defense. And when I mean friendly fire, I just mean that it was friendly.
Crimea River.
Man, the Russians are like, we've defended this bridge for 4 years. The rest of the country is completely falling apart. But damn it, this bridge is still standing, and we don't even use it. It's like, man, the irony of it. The Ukrainians also conducted...
Ukraine's not even trying to really hit that bridge anymore. The Ukrainians are hitting the Russian ferry boats that are trying to cross the strait, the Kerch Strait. They're hitting those, but they're not even bothering with the bridge anymore. It's not even really a target.
Yeah, it's not really a target at all, actually. But the Russians still doggedly defend that thing. We saw that the Ukrainians did conduct a massive drone attack overnight, by the way, folks, and we'll be showing you all a little bit of what we were able to report out of the Russian Don, which is where most of the drones were seen. We were able to see these two videos. Oh!
What the hell's this?
Bro, this is the goat in the cave. like, man, like, they're all Slav squatting. They got on Adidas tracksuits. This guy had, one of those little, Dude, this guy is legit Slav squatting. Like, all of them are. Bro, what the hell?
I thought he was using the restroom for a minute. I was like, huh, interesting.
Man, I'm gonna pull this up here really quickly. Hold up, folks. I gotta show this to y'all. Here you go. Like, literally all of them are doing this.
Bro, what the... man, honestly, for real though, kind of like that.
Bruh, I mean, that's what the Slavic people do, like the Russians, you know. Oh. Well, moving on from that, here's another clip. I mean, it's Twitter, folks. What do we gotta say? I mean, yeah, like, stuff just pops up over there, you know? But anyways, moving on from that, we also were able to see that down in Lubinsk, there was a fire down here at Lubinsk today at the oil storage depot. We heard that many Lubinskus, or are getting burned to the ground right now in this oil depot. A rather unfortunate tragedy, I would have to say. But it is what it is, I suppose. Moving us on out of the southern Russian region, it's time for us to get on into the actual war in Ukraine. Moving us on into our location unknowns, we were able to see a Russian assault team today. This is Russia's finest. 3 tractors and 2 dirt bikes.
I'll take a dirt bike when they're finished with it.
I don't think there's going to be a lot left of it when they're finished with it. Like, I don't think there's going to be much of anything left.
I'll take the parts. I'm sure the Ukrainians will get a few parts and build a couple.
Maybe. But this is the finest of Russia at this point, folks. Assault tractors and dirt bikes, and a motley crew of what appears to be highwaymen from the Middle Ages. So it looks like the Russians are doing quite poorly these days on, getting usable combat power onto the front. We've also been able to see, folks, the Russian casualty report for the past 24 hours. And according to Miss DC, keeper of the records, 1,991 drones is the 8th highest daily loss. Downward trend on tanks, APCs, artillery, and vehicles, and troop losses slightly dropping this year, with wide range from 690 to 1,400. And we have been able to see that over the past 24 hours, 930 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed, along with 3 APCs, 120 supply trucks, 2 main battle tanks, 20 artillery pieces, 1,991 drones, and 1 MLRS. All in all, not that bad of a day, and it is pretty good to see that the Ukrainians are still inflicting significant casualties onto the Russians. Now, folks, it's time for me to show y'all the upgrade. Moving us on into the Ukrainian front line.
Google Earth.
Ah, man, stem Earths. Moving us on up and into the front line. Let me orient this back towards the north. There we are, folks. This.
Man, we've made it now, man. Look at this. We've made it. Look at this. We've upgraded Big League.
Oh. I mean, this is actually.
What happened? You stubbed your toe or something? What happened?
No, that's like that little football thing, dude. You know, like the little chant they do at the football stadium.
Sound like you were like, sound like you were in pain.
Oh! But anyways, moving on from that, we actually have this new feature that came out today, folks, before we came on air. This actually allows for me to take the Google My Maps information that, by the way, folks, I have to put down on Google My Maps, but Google will actually now extrapolate that information for us and overlay it onto a Google Earth representation, which I'm using right here. So we can actually show you all this stuff on a 3D map, which I think is legitimately sick, because when we get into battlefield analysis, you can really easily see what's going on. Like, what's even crazier, folks, is because I can use Google Earth now, y'all can actually see, and this is crazy, Matthew, look at this. You see like this darker green patch here around the red line? That's the no man's land. Like, you can actually see it now.
Yeah, you can. Honestly, I love the perspective view. Like, that's really, it helps a lot visualizing the front lines.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it's really neat, folks. We didn't use this all day today in the show because, you know, like, I gotta be honest with y'all, folks. I'm working off of like no sleep right now. Because of what we were doing, we had to go and grab something from somewhere. We basically have been running nonstop for the past 48 hours. I've maybe only gotten 3 hours of sleep, so I'm a little bit too exhausted to learn exactly how to use this today because it looks like it has a couple of quirks in it. But I wanted to show it to y'all because we're going to try and integrate this a little bit more into our news coverage, considering that this is a new feature that Google has for Google My Maps. But moving us on up and into the area of Kupiansk, just to try and play around with it, we were able to see that near to the area of the Oskol River, which you can see over here to the left, it appears that Russian forces were getting pretty significantly hit in the Slobodchansky direction. Let's take a look at these Russians getting heavily hit in the Slobodchansky direction.
Falling over like that, that's like, I think he might have twisted his ankle.
Man, I think he might have sprained something. He needs some ice. Oh, that's good. That's good, brother. Get it on some ice.
Man, he got the hot cold patch, but no cold.
Oh, and look, they had a nice little video transition. They got 2 drones here. Oh, look at that. Oh, a Russian. He was a little slow. And a couple of comms posts. You see them hitting this here as well. I just saw someone in the chat, man. They said, crying about not notifying the Islamic Republic of the UK before the war is funny. Yeah, I just kind of find it a little funny that for some reason we can notify all of the literal Islamic kingdoms in the Middle East, and that doesn't bat an eye to you. But then if we notify the UK, then we don't have to notify them. It's like, that's kind of weird how, like, legitimate, like, Islamic kingdoms to y'all don't bat an eye, but if a country has some, like, a small group of, like, Islamic people living in it, then it's a problem to notify that country, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, and generally for just larger foreign policy initiatives, that's a little bit stupid to, basically lean our entire military approach on who in the world lives in the country somewhere.
You are missing out on this. You see what's going on the screen?
Oh, no, I see it. Like, they're using a lot of AI assistance to make this clip juicy. Like, I'm seeing it.
I've never seen nothing like that. That's I think they've like enhanced the images or something.
They said make this guy look like a crying Wojak and me the chat. Like, man, but anyways, moving on from that, that's the end of that clip, and it's now time for us folks to move further on down the line and into the area of Konstantinivka. This is an absolutely unbelievable clip, folks. This guy actually was attacked by a Russian drone and survived without a scratch from what we can tell. Oh, and I'll have to mute that actually, but we can see him walking down the street, and here in a second, the Russian drone will show up into view. Oh, and we can see them here firing the drone, and the guy takes a run for it, and it slams onto the ground. He hits the ground, and you're not going to believe it, Matthew. This guy actually ended up not even getting wounded from that. Somehow he survived basically an absolute miracle.
He's lucky as hell. It's probably that nice American rifle he's holding. It probably absorbed the damage.
Maybe, but it was still an absolute fluke. I mean, the guy survived something that shouldn't have been survivable. Moving us on past the Precross front, which we weren't really able to hear a lot from today, we're now going to be moving on down into the southern front near to Zaporizhia, and specifically towards the town of Belohi, where we've been seeing a large amount of combat actions, as the Russians have attempted in the past to try and reach Huilopol, which is a larger Ukrainian defensive fortification on the front, but now the Ukrainians are counterattacking back across the fields and attempting to make it back towards Belohi. We were able to see that some Russian forces near to the area of Huilopol have been hit today in the snowy weather that's currently permeating the fields and forests nearby, and we're causing some decent losses for the Russian army within this area. Oh, boy. Oh! Little ammo cook-off, you know. We can also see them hitting the comms posts as well. And that's the end of the clip, but nice to see. Moving us on from that and down towards Belohi, we also were able to see that the Ukrainians were also taking a little moment of the day to hit Russian logistics. There's some of them. Oh!
Also, by the way, like I don't need to like jump to a different topic here, but is anybody else seeing the calls for statehood for Venezuela, by the way, by the U.S. leadership? Is anybody seeing that? Have you seen that, by the way?
I've seen it. It was so dumb. I just didn't even comment on it, honestly. I saw it before the show. I didn't even mention it.
Yeah, he's repeating it again. Like in the last like 30 minutes, he's repeating it again. So apparently it wasn't a joke and it wasn't just an offhanded comment. Apparently it's something that they're seriously thinking about.
Guys, while the president, you're supposed to lean on every word that he says. I mean, clearly you're leaning into his words. You're not supposed to trust anything that he says. It's like here comes the stupidity from some, like, probably like 5 people in the chat. I'm sure it's coming here in a minute, but it's like, which one is it? Are we supposed to take the president at his word for everything, or are we supposed to just not believe anything he says? What is it for the people today who just defend everything wholeheartedly? I mean, like, what is it?
Also, it's like, why the hell do we want to take Venezuela on as the 51st state? Why the hell would we want that? It's like that poor state is just in foul shape. It's like, also, by the way, it's still run by Maduro's people. It's just Maduro's in jail right now. It's the only difference. So, I mean, hell no, we don't want to make them a state. Well, like, what benefit would that bring the United States up for a huge drag on our economy?
Oh, man, wait until the next time the Super Bowl halftime show comes around. Then we have a Spanish speaker from Venezuela. That's not even an American citizen. And it's like a state or something. It's like, you know, like, honestly, I got to say, folks, I kind of don't get it. It's like, why the hell would we want Venezuela to be a 51st state when people even hate the Puerto Ricans and they're a U.S. territory and they're all American citizens? It's like, you know, that doesn't even really line up. I just got to say, folks, I'm not even trying to get political, but this shit doesn't make any damn sense at all. I mean, most of it doesn't. I mean, like, it's like at this point, shit's just said to be said. And I know that a lot of people are gonna be like, well, it is, but he's the president. Like, you don't just say shit to say shit as the president. Like, if you're just some tweaker meth head on the side of the road asking for $20, you can, but not when you're the elected representative of the executive branch in the White House. You don't do that.
I prefer my tweakers honest. I don't like them when they're dishonest.
Man, you already know. But moving on from that, we also were able to see a Russian armored car getting hit today down in the Kherson area as well. And we can see the armored car right here getting hit. Oh, that thing cooked up nicely. Dutch oven almost.
Also, also, by the way, while we're still somewhat in proximity to the Venezuela thing, I'm sure that people have heard that there's claims out there and allegations. I'm not sure if they're true or not, but there's claims out there that Maduro, because he's still being held in jail. Apparently, I think he's still in that correctional facility in New York, actually. That one that all the other folks, the famous folks, were held at too, infamous, more like it. And they're saying that I think they're saying he's in solitary, and occasionally he yells out from like the depths of solitary, "I'm still the president of Venezuela. I'm still in charge. You go over there. You do this. You do that." It's like apparently he's like visualizing in his head that he's like still the president of Venezuela. So essentially, if you believe the reports, he's going mad in solitary. Apparently, if that's actually true, so that's a hell of a change.
Man, honestly, man, I mean, like, if I was down there, I'd just be saying stuff. Man, I'd just be like, hey, yo, like, they'd be like, what's wrong with that guy? But anyways, moving
Right,
to
it's like being in solitary. Like I've seen the documentaries about that. That is brutal. If you're in there for like weeks or something like that, that makes people that are sane like start cracking up and start going crazy. And I'm sure he might have already had a few screws loose, Maduro. So it wasn't too much to go ahead and loosen up the screw a little bit extra and start yelling about imaginations and delusions of grandeur about still being the president.
Man, I mean, honestly, man, I mean, honestly, respectfully, I mean, truthfully, I think that is the case. The guy is probably cracking down there. But the guy was already cracked, like, come down here and get me in Miraflores. And then they did get him. It's like, he literally was in Miraflores. It's like, okay, dude, this guy is a little bit dumb. But anyways, without further ado, folks, here is the speech from the president of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky. So without further ado, here's the speech. Beach.
Speech.
Шановні українці, українки, коротко про цей день. Я хочу подякувати нашим воїнам, які захищають українські позиції, знищують окупанта. Українські сили оборони зірвали російську стратегічну наступальну операцію, яку ворог планував на цей березень. І хоча атаки постійні, штурми тривають, але інтенсивність штурмів, масштаб протистояння не той, який був запланований росіянами і був обіцяний їхнім командуванням політичному керівництву Росії. Це важливо, бо наша сила на фронті – це сила абсолютно всіх українських позицій, нашого спілкування зі світом, нашої дипломатії, здатності світу бути з нами, якими б не були виклики. Я вдячний кожному нашому підрозділу на Донецькому напрямку, усім, хто захищає Україну у Харківській області, в прикордонні Сумщини. Важливо Запорізький напрямок. Росіяни там намагаються додавати собі сил, але їхні сили ми знищуємо. Я дякую нашим ДШВ, усім іншим складовим сил оборони України, піхоті, всім безпілотним підрозділам, артилерії, розвідці, спецпризначенцям, силам Нацгвардії та Національної поліції, які теж задіяні. Я дякую. Говорив сьогодні з головнокомандуючим Олександром Сирським. Є за що відзначити українських воїнів. Молодці хлопці. Ми говорили сьогодні з прем'єр-міністром Юлією Свириденко по реалізації планів стійкості для наших регіонів, які були затверджені та мають бути повністю реалізовані. Уряд працює, щоб під це був і повний фінансовий ресурс. І це багато в чому залежить від наших партнерів. Саме тому санкції проти Росії так важливі. Пакети підтримки важливі. І європейські рішення, в тому числі про 90 мільярдів євро підтримки, які були вже ухвалені, мають працювати. Слово Європи має працювати, щоб незалежно від дипломатичної ситуації, будь-яких викликів у світі наші регіони були готові на наступну зиму саме так, як цьому навчила минула зима. При цьому відповідальність обласної влади та кожної громади має бути теж достатньо серйозна. І на рівні уряду ми готові допомагати максимально, щоб люди були захищені. ДСНС України, інші структури на центральному рівні, наші енергетичні компанії мають свою частину відповідальності. Ключова робота на місцях. Важливо, що вдалося реалізувати в цьому році також індексацію пенсій. Це вагомо. Щороку, у час повномасштабної війни, Україна забезпечує соціальні виплати. Зараз ми говорили з прем'єр-міністром про старт нових програм підтримки. Додаткові виплати для пенсіонерів та людей, які потребують соціального захисту, будуть забезпечені в квітні. Саме так, як ми домовлялись з урядом. У частині наших регіонів стартували вже й дорожні ремонти. І я звертаю увагу урядовців та обласної влади, зокрема на стан доріг поблизу фронту та усіх тих громадах, де здійснюється евакуація поранених та наша військова логістика. Оборона держави – перший пріоритет. Росіяни до миру не готуються. Ми повинні забезпечити захист на 100%. І ми це робимо. Перемовини при цьому не відкладаємо. У дипломатії ніхто не розчарований. Це питання не емоцій, як хтось десь може сказати. Це питання того, на що готові партнери. Росія функціонує дуже просто. Якщо вони бояться, вони готові тримати себе в рамках. Якщо тиск на Росію послаблюють, Росія думає, що їй щастить і що вона начебто може воювати далі. Саме тому тиск на агресора – це ключ до миру, до справжньої дипломатії та до справжніх домовленостей. Сьогодні я дав нові доручення Рустему Умєрову, він спілкується постійно з американською стороною 24/7. Також на тижні ми будемо працювати з нашими партнерами в Європі, щоб можливостей захисту в Україні стало більше. Більше, а у партнерів більше готовності підтримувати нас, підтримувати Україну. Я дякую всім, хто нам допомагає. Слава Україні!
Gum slava.
And with that, that's the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on this day of the war of 1483. And it's time for us to move on, folks, into the second segment of this stream. And I gotta say that, folks, tonight was one hell of a night. A return to streaming for us after 48 hours of basically going nonstop. And also, on top of that, a lot of people were here tonight. We've almost had 200,000 views in about 2 hours, and 27,000 people were here live. And here the people still, tedious. I don't give a shit. It's
I am bot. Hear me roar.
Oh man, I mean, like, it's like, honestly, it's like we come back, it's like we give a fair take on something, and it's like whatever. It's like honestly, folks, like, it's like I could give a damn at this point, because it's like no matter what we say, like, you know, people are gonna politicize the hell out of it. Like we said, oh, how dare the Europeans? Then everyone be saying that we're hard right MAGA, and if we say, oh, you know, like they kind of got tired of being shit on, and then we're like TDS liberal snowflakes or something. It's like honestly, I could give a damn. Like, it's the news. If you don't like the news, then you're probably too ignorant to listen to it. Maybe you need to go watch, like, I don't know, Elmo, if PBS is still on or something. You know, maybe that'd be more up your alley. Or maybe you want to go.
I wouldn't even keep going on about it because the rest of our audience is having to hear all this over and over.
Man,
Those bots, they get banned.
Oh man,
they
I'm
get
telling
banned.
you,
They're
I get no
gone.
respect
They're out
around
of
here.
here.
Oh man, I'm telling you. But I mean, I'm going to stand on my business. I'm going to stand on my principles. I mean, if you don't like it,
I feel like we're defending ourselves against artificial machinery. I don't know if it's worth the time.
Man, I mean, I say it kind of is. I stand on my principles. I'll make it clear. I mean, I'm not going to back off of nothing. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on into our question segment. We didn't have any news on Cuba tonight because I'll be honest with y'all. I mean, it's like a very tiny sideshow to me. But we did hear that today they still are going through a nationwide power outage and everything. And Matthew, what are people thinking about all that stuff? And what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so we did see a very large nationwide power outage amid the U.S. threats of collapse on Cuba. So what is going on down there? What's happening in Cuba? 71% said Cuba simply falling apart. It's crappy infrastructure. While 17% said Cuba was likely cyber attacked. And 6% said it sounds like BS. Bullshit. But I'm actually with a 16%. I would say Cuba was likely cyber attacked. This has the hallmarks of U.S. operations all over it, in my personal opinion, which it would also match up with public statements. The Cuban leadership is currently negotiating with the United States leadership. And I think the current demand by the United States is that guy who's in charge of Cuba needs to step down as a sign of good faith. But I don't think he's willing to accept that. So I think as basically a warning, I think they might have cyber attacked Cuba's infrastructure, which is probably not too hard to cyber attack because I really doubt they have good cybersecurity because they kind of broke. But I would say it probably was a cyber attack. I'm actually with the minority here. But Enforcer, what say you?
I just had to say Cuba's falling apart. I mean, you know, they don't have any fuel to run the power infrastructure with. And the cyber attack, what cyber? They don't even know what a computer is in Cuba. But beyond that, I'd honestly say it's just that they ran out of fuel and they're collapsing because they've been under a blockade. And I mean, you know, Cuba doesn't produce any of its own fuel. So, you know, it's generally because they're running out of it.
Could be possibly, but what type of power plants are these that went out? I thought they were gas.
Oh, let me pull it up. Cuban power grid. Let's see what we can find here. Let's see. Fuel.
I've heard Cuba's full of hot air, so I'd have no problem coming with natural gas.
Oh, oh. Let's see. It's mostly oil. It's like 84% oil. So if they're not importing oil, their energy grid falls apart. So I would say it's not a cyber attack. I'd say they haven't been able to get oil from anyone for I think about a month and a half or 2 months, and so the power's gone out. I think that's why.
That could be it. That's a fair enough. That's fair enough assessment for me as well. So I take it back. I've been persuaded a little bit right here. I've been persuaded by this argument. I'm kind of 50-50 on it at this point. 50 cyber attack, 50-50 oil possibly.
50-50. But anyways, I hope we've addressed that well. And I gotta tell y'all something, folks. Cuba be Cuban. You know what I mean? Like, take a look at this. Take a look at this place right here, Santa Clara. Take a look at it. I mean, look at that right there. They got a Logistica S4 rail car right there.
Look at that guy. Look at that guy right there. What's he doing? Look at him. Oh, there's police in that car over there. You see them lurking in the shadows
Bro,
in
I'm
there?
not
Look
gonna
at
lie,
that.
man. The cops be casing the set. Like,
That's crazy. Man, I didn't even see him before you zoomed in. That guy was like lurking in the shadows in there. Oh, monument to a bulldozer. Yeah, honestly, this is my kind of place right here. Like, got a monument to like a bobcat-looking bulldozer type thing.
it's a caterpillar.
Oh my God, man, this is an
Caterpillar
ancient
power.
antique. That's an old caterpillar. That thing right there belongs in a museum.
And it says something like the people of the village of Santa Clara have established this monument to consecrate the de la Batalla de Santa Clara. And unfortunately, folks, I'm not that good at Spanish. I don't know what batalla means. I feel like maybe battalion of Santa Clara. Maybe it's like some sort of a battalion of engineers or something like that the monument's erected to. But this must have been during the Cuban Revolution back in the 50s because this shit ancient. Like, this thing is ancient. Let's take a look at this monument. Let's see. To victory always or something like that. But it has Che Guevara up there. Actually, that's Fidel, actually. Sorry, folks. Fidel Castro. Let's see. Then they got another rail car. They love that rail car. It looks like this monument might have also had a small disassembly. And then it says glory to the heroes and talks about what else happened. And then we can see the streets of Santa Clara right here.
Yes. The modern, the modern stallion.
Ah, yes, because nothing ever says advanced country that poses a strategic threat like horse-drawn carriages like the 19th century. Really adds a new layer. I'm not gonna lie, folks, Santa Clara doesn't really have a lot going on, to be completely frank, but really, does any of Cuba have a lot going on?
It looks like Cuba could use a belt and could use a road, possibly as well, if you know what I'm saying.
Wait a minute, a Belt and Road? 话少不少啊，冰激凌，想法
It looks like a perfect candidate for that loan sharking and stuff like that. It looks like a perfect candidate for it. And that might explain why China has some ties going on in that country right there. That might explain it. You know, when you need some money, you let people build bases.
Let's go take a look at this city, Matthew. Santiago de Cuba. Oh, they got that lit up kind of nice.
That's not too bad looking. I like the lighting. That's pretty nice.
That's actually kind of dope. Oh, look. They have the father of the patriot. Unfortunately, I don't know Spanish that well, folks. Oh my God. Fallout 4 like truck right here. Like, I don't even know what brand that is, but that is crazy.
Was Cuba the country that ordered all those like V8 like Fords or something? Then they never paid the invoice, or was that North Korea?
I think that was North Korea. I think they were the one who did
I think
like, the
was.
Volvos, and then they never paid Volvo for them.
They were scamming. They were scamming hard even back then.
Man, they were on that grind. Good God, they are on that grind in Cuba. Jesus, I gotta tell you,
This looks like New Orleans.
you're about to get the New Orleans people very angry. Like, you're about to get
Hell,
them.
I mean, tell me I'm wrong. I mean, I'm not wrong. That looks like what, the Ninth Ward or something like that.
I mean, he ain't wrong. Like, he ain't wrong, you know? Like, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of does. Oh, look, they have a little... Oh, that's the little hat of the revolution, if I'm not mistaken. Like, it's generally like the French Revolution, sort of, but I think the Cubans also kind of adopted that as well. Oh... Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this city doesn't have just a lot going on. You know, honestly, man, like, if a pirate ship pulled up into Venezuela these days, it kind of just blend in, you know?
Yeah, I think it would, actually. I probably would. What else do they have going on around here? They have anything Oh, I don't know what a house goes for in Cuba. Well, let's see here. House price in Cuba. You know, the houses in America are so crazy. I'm like stuck being a renter. A lot of people are that are young and our age right here. Houses are damn expensive. Like to get even a small one, like a little shoebox, you gotta have a lot of money. So let's see here. So house prices in Cuba generally range from 40,000 to 100,000 for
What?
typical homes. That's actually more than I thought for Cuba. It says luxury properties in Havana's upscale neighborhoods. They have that? Where's that located at? He said that's reaching up to 1.5 million. Who
What?
the hell is paying
No,
1.5
hell
million dollars for
no.
a house in Havana? Bring us to where's the nice neighborhood at? Oh, look, here's some listings. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, holy moly. Holy cow. This is a shitbox here. It's going for 100 grand. This is a shock. Oh my, bro, there's people like trying to sell investment properties in Cuba. They're talking about unique opportunity in Cuba, emerging market, 600 grand for like a crapper. Damn, wait a minute, hold on, that's a 10 bed, 5 bath. That's a mansion. Bro, that doesn't look, what the hell is this? Bro, what the?
You gotta
bro,
show it to us,
oh
man.
my
You
God.
gotta show it to us. Where is this?
Here, let me send you the link. This is crazy, man. These prices are actually insane. Here, I'll just send you the link to it.
Where is this? Let's take a look.
It's on Discord.
Let me take this off.
It looks like the housing crisis has reached Cuba.
Oh my God! What the hell? Hold on, I just gotta make sure this isn't giving away any information where I'm at. So, it doesn't look like it is. So we'll accept the cookies for now, and hopefully they won't be like, "Hey, do you want to look for houses in your location?" If it does that, I'm gonna be pissed. But let's take a look here, folks. So what do we have for sale in Cuba? We have this thing, the Casas de Cala, which is it's
Oh man,
it's
it
a
said
house.
it needs work. It's on the description. It said needs work.
Oh,
Holy shit!
Oh my
It
God!
needs a lot of work.
Oh my God! There's
Holy
mold on
moly.
the walls.
Man, go get that caterpillar off that monument and take it to the house.
Oh my God, dude, this is horrendous. This would be condemned in America. Oh my God.
Holy crap! What the hell is backrooms looking house?
Why the hell does this look like something from like Vietnam, where you hear like a GI Jane, American, your country has abandoned you. Like it looks like something from the Hanoi Hilton.
Bro, that is crazy. Like in America, that'd be like giving away for like maybe like $500 just to get rid of it.
Bro, they had the TV on the floor.
They got that old like CRT TV too.
There's mold in the walls.
Go check out
Christ.
like a nicer one than this thing right here. Like let's go see what you can get for some big bucks. Oh
How
wow,
about
they
this
have
one?
like a $2 million thing. No, scroll. Oh yeah, let's just check that one out real quick. Let's see here.
This was more average price. This is $440,000, by the way, everyone. So
That's kind of crazy though.
that's insane for Cuba. Oh well, I mean, it's not like
That's
that
not too bad.
I mean, like that's like high end for Cuba, but you know, I
Can't
don't
so
know.
much for the decorating taste, but I mean, other than that, I mean, oh my God, bro, look at that TV. What is that, like a 200-inch TV? What is that?
Dude, they got a movie projector in this thing. Like, oh my God. Also, that staircase is like kind of nice though.
There's like elements of this house that's nice, and then there's like parts of it you're like, what the hell? Like, what's up with this? But it's like sort of a confusing like setup here. It's kind of nice though. But go take a look at like the nicer, like the higher end ones. Like there's one for $2 million. There it is right there. Look
I'm
at that
not
thing.
gonna lie,
$2
man.
million.
That $74,000 one's really calling my name. We'll get to that one here in a minute, but let's take a look at this. Oh my God.
They got a video with this one. We can't watch
Yeah,
that
we
sadly. But
ain't
look at
watched
that. That's actually pretty nice right here with this. I will admit that.
Whoa.
That is nice right there. $2 million, eh? That's a lot of money. But I mean, I guess for the square footage here, you're getting about 14,000 square feet, 12 rooms, 12 beds, 6 bath. I feel like you might get robbed or something like that. Like it seemed like it'd be a target for like a robbery or something.
It's not that nice. Look at the finer details here. The paint chipping away everywhere. Like it kind of looks nice from a distance, but if you went and actually saw this, it looked pretty rough. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie, very ornate. Like this would actually be legitimately cool. I mean, if it was really well kept up, I like this architectural style. It's really neat. But not in Cuba. The government will probably come and confiscate this at some point from you. So, you know, it looks like a museum, honestly.
It kind of does, actually. I'm just not sure who's got $2 million that wants to live in Cuba. I'm not sure like how that is. That's a strange looking. This is getting stranger as the pictures go on. It's like the walls from an Amityville horror house.
You know what I feel like this is from? I feel like this building was probably built in like the 18th century while it was part of New Spain, or La Española. And this was probably something that like a Spanish planter that ran like a plantation was living in. Because it feels like it's from that historical period. Like it looks like it is. Let's see if we can read the description here. Oh, look at that. There are records of his existence as early as mid-1595. So I was generally almost right. With 4 floors and more than 200 rooms, it was built by Cebolinos de Barahona family, an influential family in the region that transformed the entire area into the largest wheat fields in Portugal. Portugal? This is in Cuba, though. Let's see.
Huh.
Oh, so this was built in 1750. So actually, I was right about the time period. I was like, it's like the 18th century or so, like pretty much. So interesting.
Let's see something that we could afford though. Like go check out that little shack. This one right here, 74,000. I think I could swing a payment for that.
Oh
Let's see.
boy.
What do we get for the money? What are we gonna get?
Oh,
Oh yes, sir. Looks like a crack
that
house.
beam is breaking. Look at it.
Man, let's see the rest of it. I'm trying to see the whole thing.
Oh,
Oh yeah, backyard needs a little mowing. That's all. A little pressure washing.
oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh man. Holy moly.
this is where you get executed
Holy
by the
moly.
party.
Oh my God. Let's see the next picture.
Oh my God.
Ah, yes. Yes, top-notch fixtures.
Oh,
Oh, yes, that's the living room. Look at that recliner right there. Thing has no recline on it. This thing's like vertical back on that thing.
bro, this room right here has got a Live Leak logo that just hangs out in the top right corner of your view when you're in it. Like, this room looks wrong, like a cartel
tell you what.
execution video wrong. Oh my God.
I would hate to be the realtor. I'd hate to be the realtor for this thing. Like, can you imagine the bullshit you got to come up with to sell this? It has exposed rafters in the ceiling.
What?
Look at the floors.
That's the bed.
Floors have that nice new tile right there on the floor. It's like that lovely old style flooring. We even have a nice bed here. It's been nicely worn in for the next residents. As you can see here, you can see clearly where your ass is supposed to go because there's a big stain right there on the. Let's see the next picture.
Oh,
Ah, yes. You see the cubby hole where you sit on the couch. Of course, you want to be nice and encapsulated. It's like a built-in bomb shelter, as you can tell.
don't mind the marks on the floor or whatever this black stuff is. It's definitely nothing. Jesus fuck. Oh my, like the bed pallet thing is real. Like they love those.
Now you see, folks, this is the type mattress here where you stuff the cash and the currency in it right here.
In the
That's type
pallets.
mattress this is. Let's see some more.
Oh, bro, the paint
yes.
coming off the roof.
You might have a little sheet of sheetrock come down in your head while you're sleeping, but that's okay, though. It's just a feature.
Oh, Matthew, this is in Portugal, by the way.
Portugal?
This is Cuba, Portugal. So there's a town in Portugal called Cuba. And let me go pull
You're
it up.
kidding. So this isn't even Cuba? Are you telling me that?
Yeah, this is Portugal, actually.
Bro, Portugal, my God.
Bro,
like,
Portugal,
damn.
like,
I I was actually genuinely convinced this was Cuba, to be honest with you, because I was like, this looks like something that would be in Cuba. I didn't know Portugal was on that timing like that.
Man, I didn't know Portugal was on that grind like that. Like, I'm not gonna lie, man. I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, the housing market in Portugal is freaking brutal, man. Like, that's
so if that's
unreal.
if that's what Portugal looks like, then what the hell does Cuba's houses look like?
I don't think you're gonna find them online on some online listing. I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, I think they're
Hold
gonna
on.
look worse than that, though.
Let me see here if I can get this little deal going on. Let's see here. Cuba. Let's see here. If I repeat it a few more times, I'll find it. Let's see here. Cuba property sales. So actually, it appears you are correct. It does not look like Cuba lists properties online for sale, which actually makes a lot of sense if you really think about it. Let's see if this is Cuba.
I found some pictures on Google though of like Cuban houses, like we can look at.
Yeah, let's see. So actually, I'm seeing some listings in Cuba. Actually, there's a site for it, but I'm not totally sure if it's legit or not. So the properties in Cuba for like a 3-bed, 1-bath, about 11 grand. You can get a shack at Home Depot, I think, for kind of like that price. Let's see here. There's a La Bahama Bajayaros for 13,000 USD, 3 rooms, 1 bath. So actually, the prices are pretty affordable in Cuba for the most part. I'll be honest with you, believe it or not, the stuff in Cuba that they got for sale for like 4 grand, 10 grand, it's like the price of like a Home Depot like shed that goes in the back. These are nicer than what you see in Portugal, actually.
I'm not gonna lie, man. Cuba, Portugal might be worse off than Cuba, Cuba. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, like that
That's the
was.
curse. If you call something Cuba, I think it's finished.
I'm not gonna lie, man. And it'll be like 100 grand. I mean, like, it's like, geez. I mean, that's rough. Let's take a look at these houses on Google Images. So this is the inside of a Cuban house. I mean, it's not like entirely bad. Now that's pretty bad, and that's pretty damn bad as well. They have a wooden ladder up there to get to the roof. Let's see here.
Hey, could you imagine if an American landlord try to rent that out? They would just get like those huge 5 gallon buckets of paint to slather all over that thing, and then say, "Look, it's newly renovated."
It'd be solid white, like they do everything now. Oh my lord! I'm not gonna lie, folks. I mean, honestly, Cuba's got better housing, at least from the Google images, than Cuba, Portugal had, and you know that's. I'm not gonna lie. God bless the folks down in Portugal. I mean, outside of Lisbon. I mean, they are living in the sticks. Like that's pretty rough. I'm not gonna lie. Now this is pretty damn bad though. I mean, this is like Cuba, Portugal at that point.
That's like a studio apartment. The way they have that like refrigerator like up on the bed and like the TV and stuff next to
Oh
it.
my god,
Oh, wow, look at that waterfront property, bro. That's a nice view right there.
man!
Is that dirt on the floor?
Yeah, don't worry about that though. Like, let's look at that oceanfront view. Like, the dirt on the floor doesn't really matter. It's just insulation, technically. Let's see. I'm not gonna lie. You know, Cuba's pretty damn bad off. Like, you know, like down bad. You know, really. Um,
Oh, bad.
like down bad for some good housing. You know, I bet you they'd kill for some good housing. But you know, I have to see. But yeah.
Also, though, that would be a fantastic one right there. That one with that little open ocean view right there. If they'd simply like fix it up, that might be why the U.S. is interested in it. It looks like a real estate opportunity.
Oh boy. It's time to build a casino and golf course. It's like, really? Oh my God. How old is this stuff? Like, that overpass, that thing probably has been unchanged since, like, the Cuban Revolution in the 50s. Like, they probably never replaced that bridge or repaired it once. I'm not gonna lie, folks.
I'd rather live in the car in Cuba. I'm not gonna lie. Like the cars like are kind of cool because they're older and stuff like that in Cuba. I'd rather just live in the back.
Ooh, yeah, the railroad bridges, dude, are really at the end of their life. I mean, like, that's looking pretty bad.
Yeah, it's looking like it could have used a little inspection.
Maybe here and there. Oh
Luckily,
my
you won't need
God,
binoculars to see the problem with that one.
man. This is Por la Habana lo más grande. I don't know what that means, unfortunately,
For the
folks.
house, it's great.
Man, they said, we so poor, but less is good. Like, man, that's what they meant. But, I mean, oh, who is this? Who is this guy right here? He is, let's see. Unfortunately, I can't tell you. I believe he's just a revolutionary of some sort, I would believe. But anyways, oh, that's a nice bridge, actually. But what else do? Oh, it's like one of the only well-kept places in all of Cuba right here. I mean, the waterfront's really nice. But, you know,
Oh
it doesn't...
yeah, that water though, I like that. Like I will say, like, oh wow, look
Oh,
at that.
wow.
Now see, that's what it could look like if they had like the money to upkeep it. Are you sure this is in Cuba? That sure doesn't look like Cuba.
Oh, yeah, this is in Matanzas, Cuba.
I tell you what, and I will say, if I was a real estate guy, I see potential in Cuba. I will admit that, but that's no reason to go and like invade or something like that. But there is potential here.
Yeesh. Bro, I would not
That's the least
trust
of the
riding on
worries.
that railroad, bro. Like, I would feel like you're probably going to get derailed and injured at some point from that. Like, that doesn't look trusty. I'm not going to lie. This city is probably one of the nicer ones off in Cuba. We can't click on the picture of that statue, though. But, I mean, it's really pretty down there. It's just a shame, you know, the communists run the country. It's an unfortunate reality of things. But, you know, maybe one day it'll change. Maybe one day. But we'll have to see.
You know what I would like to do? Like, obviously we're in the media business, so it's a little bit different. But if I ever was in the real estate business, I would love to build like a 50 floor tower, like right on the coast, like in that nice area of Cuba, help build it out and stuff like that, and put matte like in huge bold letters at the very top of the building in gold. Like, I feel like that would really complete my life.
That would really complete our life. And then we'd have to do that the rest of our life because it wouldn't just be good enough to have one. Every building would have to be that way. And then we'd have to go around really pumping ourselves up and basically getting a whole bunch of people to think that we're the greatest at everything. So that way they'll go out of their way to attack people and hate them if they say that they don't like us. That is the way to do it, Matthew. That's the way to do it. Nobody's realized that yet. But we're about to take them to the Hershey Train Village because we're going to be getting on that chocolate, my boys. Jesus! This is a
What the?
rolling Federal Railroad Administration violation. Like that thing
Yeah, but
is
see,
well.
you just got to have the right mindset. Look at this
Oh,
thing right here. You see these things? You see
oh.
to some, go back to that train picture. Go back to that train picture. Some people look at this and they say, this right here needs to go to the scrapper. I look at it as a great tourist opportunity. Imagine if you fix this thing up right here and you put it right next to Matt's Golden Tower and you have this thing riding in circles around it or something like that, and charge people like $10 to like take a ride on it or something like that. This would be a great little tourist trap.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I don't think they're getting the chocolate up here in Hershey train station, man. I think this place looks like shit. I mean, look at that.
Economic development. That's what they call it. They say, sir, economic development, sir. We're going to provide jobs to the community. They're going to say, sir, you're a great employer, sir. We love the gold letters for Matt. They call him Matt. He's the guy who was always there, that guy. They say, sir, have him out of the door, sir. Have him greet him when they come in. He's a great guy. He said, let him in the door. They said, give him that top service. We want him to be right. We want him to be good.
Dude, this place is absolutely depressing. Like, honestly, like just looking at the pictures of it, this is terrible.
It's terrible to some people, but you gotta have the right mindset. You gotta be a real thinker to pull this one off. You gotta be real smart. It's real smart. You can't be stupid and go in a place like this. You gotta have smarts about you.
Honestly, I think you're right. I think you're right. And on that note, folks, it is time for us to get on into our questions because we've been derelict in our duties to get to the questions so far. So we're gonna have to get to them. So Matthew, what do we have?
So jumping into our first question, our first super chat, the last segment here, this one goes to Dax Salmon. And thank you very much, Dax, for that $50 support. We do appreciate that very, very much. He said, good evening, enforcers. What do you think of the possibility that the U.S. is reluctant to officially involve NATO because that may cause the U.S. to lose control of the war to NATO commanders as a requirement for the allies to agree to get involved?
Generally, that wouldn't be the case because usually the Supreme Allied Commanders are American commanders in NATO, and currently at the moment, Grinkovich is the Supreme Allied Commander of all NATO forces. He's an American general, so he really wouldn't be losing any control. And also, on top of that, a lot of people seem to misunderstand that right now the war in Iran is completely outside of the parameters of the NATO Charter. You can't even invoke Article 5 over the war in Iran because it doesn't meet any of the criteria to even invoke Article 4, which leads to the invocation of Article 5. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I forgot one last thing real quick. And in my golden matte tower with the big matte in gold letters at the top of it, I'm going to have one floor at the bottom dedicated for the gift shop. I will have bobblehead mats. I will have matte T-shirts. I will have matte hats. We will have matte mats. That'll be a top seller. That'll be a top seller, sir. Matte mats. They said you gotta leave with a mat. You gotta have a mat to go. You gotta have one to go, sir. You gotta take it. It's like food to go for the mind. You gotta take it with you and put it at your doorstep. Every time you walk in the door, you say, "Look, there's Matt right there. He's with me at all times." That's what they say. But anyways, though, moving on to our next super chat. This one goes to Hokey Redneck, and thank you very much, Hokey, for that $50 support. He said, "Is the USS Ford cursed and fires hitting other ships? Their cruisers shooting down two of our own?"
I don't know if the Ford's cursed, but it doesn't really sound like that was a great thing to have a fire that large and heavy at the moment down there in the northern Red Sea. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping the channel to keep it running. I wouldn't know if the Ford's cursed, though. I wouldn't know. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping the channel keep it running. Now, if they have a trend of that kind of stuff happening on the Ford, then I'd say probably. But for now, not necessarily. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, they say people that don't like the gift store, they have MDS. Excuse me, a little bit of a voice crack, but that's okay. We're getting older in old age. It happens. The voice cracks like the mind too. But you gotta have MDS. They call it Matt Derangement Syndrome. They go deranged when they hear him talk. I can't do this. I'm laughing too much. But the next one goes to Old Warrior Fella, who puts in the 50. And thank you very much, Old Warrior, for that support. He said, I have nothing to say. Take one from the chat.
And I thank you so much for the support, Old Warrior. You may not have anything to say, but we still thank you for supporting the channel and saying you have nothing to say. And we will get a live chat in your honor. So, Matthew, what do we got?
And the live chat question goes to Marie, who said, does Saudi Arabia still have troops in Yemen and LSA?
Yes, they do, actually, to some degree. Not a lot of them, though, at this point, but they do have some there still. So a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 50 from Hokey Redneck, and thank you very much, Hokey, for that support. He said, I have to modify my comment thanks to Jackie Lou. I merged the Truman and Ford together, and maybe a Navy problem.
You know, actually might be right on that. It may be a Navy problem. Been hearing about fires breaking out on these ships a lot lately, you know? It sounds like a lot of people aren't switching out those little lint collectors inside of the dryas. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping the channel to keep running, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Mr. Personality, and thank you very much, good sir, for that 20 as well. He said, first and only time I'll probably be able to donate. I just want to say thanks for doing these. And I fall asleep every night listening to you guys, except for Monday, oddly enough. And it's my informative white noise. Much love in LSA.
Oh, and I thank you so much for the support. And I thank you for the kind words. We love to be white noise for folks. We love it. We really do. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, because you help us to be able to keep this white noise on air. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here. We wouldn't be able to sit here and have people moan and groan at the beginning of the show about our analysis. And we wouldn't be able to keep this news rolling every day either. And I got to say a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it rolling, because folks like you help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this thing running. Also, by the way, do have to give an update. Netanyahu, or as I like to call him, Mr. Yahoo, is still alive inside of Israel. He's not dead. That's all misinformation that they're putting out about the guy. He's still alive out there. It was his brother that died. His brother got blown to smithereens in a drone strike, I believe. But he's still alive. The actual binging Mr. Yahoo guy, he's still alive down there. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
As some would say, the boss is still around. Because everybody says, "Oh, yeah, these guys are like they must be Israeli agents or something, or they're CIA, or they're Mossad or something."
I love how at the beginning of the show, you know what's stupid, folks, is that at the beginning of the show, I was like, we ought to treat our allies with decency. So this guy is compromised. The Israelis have gotten him. It's like, how the hell does that even equate to the Israelis have gotten us? The Israelis don't give a shit about anyone except for themselves. It's like, hell, if we were compromised by them, we'd be like that other guy, and up there in the government right now who's talking about, I would send soldiers to die for Israel. I mean, that would sound compromised, but what we're saying is more so just common sense, big difference. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
Our next one here goes to the Games Schizo, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Games Schizo, for that support. He said, I've been following your news broadcast for years now, and today's my birthday. And also, happy birthday to you, by the way. He said, keep up the great work.
And I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And thank you for the kind words. And we will try our best to keep up the good work. I got to get to bed after this thing, folks. I got to sleep. I've had a headache, pretty bad one, during this whole stream. Hopefully it hasn't come through. And also my joints, they're very sore. Like, I'm very tired right now.
Your joints?
Yeah, like all my joints, man. Like, after I woke up from that little nap before the show, man, I woke up and everything was hurting, like, on me, like, every single joint in my body, like, my ribs and everything. I was like, damn. I was like, I don't know what just happened, but I think my body is just absolutely crashing from what we've done and how little we slept. But with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you help us to keep this thing on air and keep this thing running. So big thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to be possible and reality and everything. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next super chat here is going to go to none other than Duncan VR. And thank you very much, Duncan, for that 28 Australian support, and we appreciate it very, very much. He said, Ba Moo Woof Quack. Sir, well, you have a Matt the Marmot t-shirt in your golden gift shop. And what say the Marmot, Governor? What say the Marmot? Honestly, like I would love a gift shop. Like, could you imagine? Like everybody wants a gift shop with like their name and their face like all over it. Like, I would love to walk into a store and just have my face on everything. Like, I would not feel weird at all about that. I wouldn't feel like I was potentially a narcissist or anything like that about my face being all over everything. I would just be thinking, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way the world's meant to be. But oh, hello there, Gavin. Now look at him.
Oh, hello there. How's everyone doing tonight?
What you say? He broke up. I couldn't hear him.
Oh, hello there. How's everyone doing tonight?
Hey, doing pretty good, Governor. It's been a long day. It's been a long day. It's been a long week. It's been a long life. It's been a long life. They say for this moment right here. He's been having a long time ever since he got painted on his poster. It's not even accurate. It's not even right. His whole life's a lie. But what's the fly say?
Aw, man. Aw, man. Aw, I don't even know what that guy's up to anymore. I don't even have any material on him. Like, I've completely dropped that guy off the face of the earth. I don't even know what to say anymore. But anyways, with that, I do thank you for the support, Duncan Viard. I hope you enjoyed at least kind of like our half-baked Moment in the Fly segment right there. I mean, it was all right, you know? It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad at all. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I got to say, I got to say, folks, I'm always one for a good conversation. I'm always one for a good conversation. I just saw someone say, NATO's been screwing us over for decades. Please explain. Please explain. I'd like to know. Like, saying that's cool, but how? I love to know. Please tell me. You're probably about to say something about how we're pouring money into NATO and which isn't true. And then they'll tell me that you probably don't know a lot about NATO and how it works, and then your point's really irrelevant. But I'd like to know. Please tell me. I'd love to know. I also saw someone else say that we should leave NATO. And you know, I gotta say that's the funniest reaction. Like, we're sitting here begging for all these people to help us out in clearing the Strait of Hormuz, and because they're not too happy with us because we've been treating them like shit, they don't want to help out. So then our reaction is to just try and screw ourselves even further by removing ourselves from the alliance where we could even try and ask them for help, so that we, from the rest of the point in the future, we can't ask them for help at all. You know, it's really interesting to me. Really deep, like, you know, four-dimensional, real chess-like thinking right here, you know? Like, really something that makes you go, damn, these people are so smart that I think maybe they'd be suited for some good labor, like janitor work or something. You know, maybe that would be well within their thoughts, you know, and even then, they might not be able to do it because, you know, it's like, hell, if they can't put two and two together that easy, I mean, you know, like, then you're running into some issues here. I mean, like, you know, some real developmental issues. And I don't mean to be dissing on them, but I also mean to say, like, you know, like, I gotta say, I understand why people aren't really happy with them, but at the same time, acting like they got no point to what they're doing. I mean, you know, that's also a little bit stupid as well, because, you know, like, you know, if you look at it from the Europeans' position, what they're doing to us on Iran, we already did to them last year on Ukraine. So, you know, it's coming around. What goes around comes around is what they say. You know, it's like, damn, you know, it's like, how the hell do people not get that these days, you know? Like, I'll be honest with you, folks, if I ever dealt with people, well, I'll tell you, I've dealt with people with that kind of mindset as far as having personal friendships and stuff, and I'll tell you this, none of them are my friends now, because, you know, friendships like that, they don't last long, especially when they're one-sided like that. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, it is time for us to move on and into the next one.
All right, so the next one goes to my trucking travels, who puts in a 20, and thank you very much for that support, good sir, as well. He said, thank you for everything you guys do. Please take one from the chat. Fort Stockton, Houston, via Austin, LOL.
And I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and the kind words. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the live chat question goes to Trout, who said, I heard a rumor that 3 Russian ships were observed off the coast of Gibraltar, possibly loaded up with some ballistics.
Usually all Russian ships are armed. Russian warships, most warships are always armed, hence the warship. But beyond that, I haven't really been able to hear about that, and I'd have to unfortunately declare ignorance at the moment because that hasn't really been on our purview or radar, at least at the moment. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Trucking Chef. And thank you, Trucking Chef, as well for that 20. He said, good evening, enforcers, and everyone out there. Remember, the enforcers are just cool dudes who are reporting the news. No biases at play. Just honest reporting. A good job, gentlemen. And can you tell me about George Stephenson, and who is he?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't really be able to tell you about George Stevenson at the moment, but I do thank you for the support, and I thank you for helping the channel to keep running and understanding it's coming from a neutral perspective. But the truth is that it doesn't matter. Like the thing is that we keep the channel apolitical where we just say stuff for what it is and say it sensibly. But these days, like a decent vocal minority of people don't understand that. And so no matter what, even if you say something that's fairly reasonable, it just immediately goes into stupidity. Like it doesn't matter how much we try and remain non-political these days. People are just going to take anything that we say as political, because if it ever says that their blessed great leader is somewhat incorrect or has erred on something, then that is clearly a criminal offense these days. That's how what even the administration believes, was now they're trying to go around and take people's broadcasting licenses for portraying the war as not perfect and the greatest thing that's ever happened, and it's like, I just got to be kind of upfront. I mean, if you're dealing with an administration like that and a group of people like that, you're always going to look like an enemy, unless you're painting something perfectly, like, oh, he's just amazing, he's thought of everything, he's doing everything right. And there's someone, you're making it political right now. There's really no way that people are never not going to say that now, because if we literally just sit there and go, oh, well, it looks like they didn't really consider that, I mean, that's taken as political. I mean, the stupidity of it is just unbounding at this point. How literally any comment that's not perfect, and this is the greatest president who has ever lived, America wouldn't have existed without him, blah blah blah. It's like literally talking about Kim Jong-un at this point. If you don't talk about him like that, then people take it as political. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one. But a big thanks to you once again.
Yes, indeed. And our next one goes to Squid People Forever, who puts in a 20. He said, how do we fix this mess?
I would say how you fix the mess is a little complicated at this point, but really opening up the Strait of Hormuz would help out a lot with fixing the problem that we've created at the moment right now. And then from there, you'd really have to try and piece it together and then work it out from that point on. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Our next one goes to ER2 The Win, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much for that support as well, good sir. He said, how was the second spring from across the valley? Saluting from WJ, and take one from the chat.
And what do they mean by that, Matthew? What did they mean?
Second spring across the valley? If he means from the Salt Lake Valley, I wasn't here during spring of last year. I was actually, we arrived in November in here. So if he means that, I actually wasn't here for the first spring.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't here either. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the one from the chat goes to AF Kaplan. He said, since the G7 won't help, do you believe the U.S. can open the Strait of Hormuz on its own?
Yeah, we generally can. I mean, it would be nice to have them come along and help, but if they don't want to, they can do that. We still have to open it for our own reasons. And on top of that, to say what we said before this whole thing came to a head, this is our war, we did start it, and nobody else is obligated to come and fix the shit we messed up, just truth be told. Like, if you go into a war and things start going badly, that isn't everyone else's in the world's problem. That would be stupid. People are always like, oh, this is everyone else's problem. I mean, if you go and drop a bomb on Khomeini's head and kill him, and then the whole war starts after that because of what we did and nobody else was involved, I mean, if things go badly at that point, it's kind of all on us. I mean, you really can't blame anyone else that they don't want to come and get involved. They didn't decide to start it. They haven't started it, and they're not fighting in it right now, so they kind of have the choice to opt out, which is another thing that people don't get. Kind of like how everyone talks about the United States doesn't have to get involved in Ukraine. Kind of similar principle there. So if you think that the U.S. shouldn't be involved in Ukraine, you can't bitch simultaneously that you don't want to get involved in Iran. It's literally the same thing from two different ends of the coin. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping the channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Gabe, who puts in that 20 and said, nice work, fellows.
And thank you so much for enjoying the work, and thank you for supporting it and helping it to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Boog, and Boog said, all true and amazing friendships are mutually beneficial, and you guys are spot on. And anyone who criticizes any of our allies for not being there, you have no clue how relationships work. And it is true, an alliance is supposed to be mutually beneficial. If these countries were underlings, then, why are we in an alliance with them? How's that beneficial if they're underlings? So, that wouldn't make much sense. So, it's got to be mutual. Like, a relationship has to be a two-way street. If it's not, then it's going to fall apart. And, I mean, that's universal across any relationship. But, Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that. I mean, it makes sense. Some people don't get sense these days. It's so weird, though, because, if they were in a friendship like that, they would cut that friend off pretty quickly. But then, for some reason, when some guy tells you that that's not the way it works and it's supposed to be exploitative on our end, then people just believe that up front. Really odd with that. But beyond that, though, I do thank you for the support, and you're absolutely right. It's really a two-way street. And that's what happens when you diss people and crap on them for a whole year, is that they don't want to be around to help us out when we ask them to. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
So this one goes to none other than Eric Brown, who puts in the 20. And thank you, Eric, for that support. He said, oh my goodness, my old ship is a literal sewer fire. Also, trust me, the surf and turf ain't that great. I mean, I would still have it personally. I mean, I'm not too picky when it comes to food like that. I mean, just any good cooked meal these days, I like it for the most part, because these days I really don't have time to cook, sadly, too much. Especially since this war started with Iran, I haven't had time for anything like that. So I like cooked meals. If I can get a little crappy little lobster and a little crappy little steak, I'll take it too. But unfortunately, what say you?
I would have to say a big thanks to you for the support, and I'd also have to say, I mean, I've heard the surf and turf isn't really that great. Myself, I've never had it, but from people who have had it, they're like, it's all right. It's not the greatest thing. It really depends on how they cook it, and usually the cooking's mid. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Also, I gotta say really quickly, because I see this comment, and I just gotta say, I gotta figure out how they're working it, because I'm seeing this from some people who've been around for a minute. So some people are like, Britain and Australia have been hijacked by Islamists. That's why they don't want to help.
Well,
I gotta ask.
I wouldn't get into those.
No, I gotta ask. No. I gotta ask. If that's the case, why in the world is Japan, which doesn't apply to that at all, why in the world did they say no? Where in the world were they? Or Germany, for that matter? They said no, and that doesn't apply to them, even if that was true. So why in the world did they say no? They said no because it's stupid to get involved. Like, truth be told, and they also don't like being treated like crap. So, instead of trying to come up with all these fairy tale, made-up stories and ideas as to why people aren't joining, they're not joining because everybody got treated like crap. It doesn't matter anything about the internal situation within their country. That proves the point. I mean, if everybody in the G7 said no, and then everybody in our sphere of influence in NATO and elsewhere had said no, you kind of can't throw everyone in the same group, because it's different from country to country. So that doesn't really make any sense at all. But moving on from that, we're on to the next one.
Our next one goes to Hokey Redneck, who puts in a 20. And thank you, Hokey, as well, for that support. He said, will the Poles or Lithuanians take Kaliningrad?
I would say probably neither of them will try and take Kaliningrad. Most countries in Europe aren't really ones for offensive wars. They're more so for defensive wars. So a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 20 from Dax Salmon. He said, I'm playing catch up, but I just heard you say, I prefer my tweakers honest, not dishonest. That's fantastic. Well done. LSA. Honestly though, I prefer my tweakers honest, I will say. Usually tweakers are not very honest, because usually, the tweaking kind of like drives some dishonest behavior, because the desire to get the next fix kind of like, it kind of puts your like morals a little bit on a little bit of a roller coaster a little bit, at least from what I've heard. I'm personally not a tweaker, but that's what I've heard. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say, generally, honesty is the best policy. And even if you are a tweaker, being honest gets you a long ways, I wouldn't know personally, but I'd assume it probably would, because honesty always gets everyone a long ways. But a huge thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep running. With that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Dax Salmon once again. He puts in a 20. I said, not really sure why, but thanks for keeping us moaning, ayo, and groaning.
Hey, yo! But a big thanks to you for support, and we're always happy to keep it going. So a big thanks to you once again, and with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 14 from Shed Show Talk, and thank you for that support, by the way. He said, hello, gentlemen, your friendly Brit here. And hello. He said, so many UFO sightings across this war, also prevalent in World War II. Our pilots called them Foo Fighters. Why? And also, did you know Columbus won a royal reward for a sighting?
And I thank you for the support. I wouldn't know about that. Generally, UFO stuff is just something I never really look into all too much. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We've seen, I know people are going to hate that orb of judgment thing in the Middle East. That's one of the unexplained things we've seen before. The only other one that comes to mind is there was a situation in Ukraine. It was filmed by frontline Ukrainian soldiers. They filmed some odd object in the sky. It also, by the way, we don't even know what these things are. Like, it could be like a drone, an aircraft, or something like that. We don't know. But there's been a couple of unexplained things. It's just hard to explain what it is, or otherwise it wouldn't be called a UFO, unidentified. But But anyways, though, our next super chat goes to none other than David Royton, who puts in a 14. And thank you very much, David, for that support. He does not leave a comment, but we do appreciate that very, very much. We also have a 10 from Donald Kaus. And Donald said, Putin asked the psychic when he would die. The psychic said it would be Ukrainian holiday. Putin said, which holiday? And the psychic said, any day. Oh, my goodness gracious. He said that'll be a Ukrainian holiday on that day.
Oh, dang. I gotta thank you for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Pookie, and thank you very much for that support. They said, let's go Enforce It Bros, and love you guys.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for the kind words. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have one here from Craig Jones, who put in a 5. He said, do you think that by the United States' current administration denying Ukraine help has made them 100 times better in drone warfare?
I think to a degree it kind of has, but it's necessary to survival, even if they're not even if they are getting support, that they adapt and innovate, because war always demands constant innovation and adaptation, even with a large amount of support. So I would say, kind of, but I feel like support militarily wouldn't really have that much of an impact on whether they became good at drone warfare or not. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Cachulian343, who said, this is what happens when you piss on your allies and treat them like dirt by meddling with their economy and threatening and insulting them to their faces.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens, you know. Like that we've been trying to make that clear. And I mean, if people didn't read the national defense strategy for this year, we literally stated that we were planning on meddling in elections and internal affairs in European countries. You know, if anyone in Europe said that directly about what their plans were inside the United States of America, do you all think that we would be looking at the Europeans as friendly countries or unfriendly countries? We'd be looking at them as unfriendly. I think it's just crazy how much crap right now gets dished out on the Europeans, and then everybody acts like they're supposed to just turn a blind eye to it, and then act like we're still the greatest of friends. Like, honestly, like, I would be frank with y'all. I mean, it would be great for them to be down there in the Strait of Hormuz, but if they actually came down there with how they're being treated, I mean, like, honestly, they would be making a pretty big case in Europe that they're a bunch of bitches, because they're basically getting treated like dogs, and then they'd still be jumping around in America's will, which, you know, would be okay for us. But I mean, as far as those nations are concerned, I mean, it make them look like absolute jokes, you know, like how little self-respect they have and such for their own nation, their own countrymen, that sort of a thing. Like, I'd be honest with you, like, if the Europeans were treating us like that, I would completely get us basically shafting them. But the Europeans have never really treated us like that. You know, and then someone's about to say, Europeans don't like us. Like, people in Europe don't like us, not the governments of those European countries. People in America are also quite stupid as well, but I don't really think that's a good excuse for everyone to hate on America overseas, is because a couple of Americans are a little bit too ignorant to help themselves. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Cachulian343, who said, between, let's see here. They said, between incompetence and how far behind we are with drone warfare, I'm worried that this is going to turn into America's Ukraine, and imagine Afghanistan, but as a proxy war with China. The drone, honestly, I will say this: the drone threat is a real threat, but that is pretty much the only thing we're behind on. Everything else the U.S. military has perfected over decades. Like, they perfected the art of warfare over decades. So the drone threat, even though to some people it seems like a minor threat, that's actually a very big deal. Like, you can ask any country, like, for example, Russia, Ukraine, drone warfare accounts for like the vast majority of frontline death when it comes to the frontline soldiers being taken out. So the drone warfare situation, I think, was underestimated to a large degree. We're now even seeing Iraqi proxy groups that are like pro-Iranian. They're now fielding FPV drones against the pro-Iraqi forces that are U.S. aligned, and also fielding them against U.S. forces in the area too. So it's already spreading to the Middle East, as we can see. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that generally that is true. So big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Play Street Fighter, who said, on Ukraine, do you think it's accurate to say that Kyiv is preparing to push Russia back? Or is the truer picture that both sides are making localized gains and the front remains contested in LSA?
Generally, Ukraine is the one that's in the advantage on the front line at the moment. So big thanks to you for support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from William, who said, guess what? Let's see here. Sadly, I can't read this one, William. Sadly, not. It gets too political, but we appreciate the support. We also have a 10 from Kachulian343 yet again, who said this is arguably also in their interest when you factor in that they don't trust us to come when Russia attacks anymore, and they don't want to get bogged down in Iran when wars are at their front doorstep.
Yeah, that's true. That's one of the reasons why. I mean, that was actually what was stated directly out of Germany for one of the reasons why they wouldn't do that. And then on top of that, the other thing is that if you treat countries like crap, they're just not going to come and help you. That's just the simple truth of it. And people will argue that against that till the cows come home. But honestly, at this point, folks, like the truth of it is, like people are going to say whatever the hell they want in America, whether it makes sense or not. And the country runs itself off of fictitious notions at this point from both ends. So it's like I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but at this point, just watching like how ignorant the common denominator is that's political on the right and the left in this country these days. If that doesn't change, and I'm not sure if it will change, this country is going down a path where we're basically going to screw ourselves hand over fist over the next 10 years if it keeps going like this has been going for the past 4 years while we've been covering the news. Like, that's just going to be the honest truth of it. Like, people have got to get up off their asses and actually understand the world they're living in instead of living in these fictitious realms that they've made for themselves where they just dwell in the stupidest shit I've ever seen, and they believe it till they believe it till the end of time on both ends, and it's just not reality either way. I mean, if they don't change that in this country, and that's something that the people are going to have to change, not the government, this country is going to not be in a good place in 10 years. I can tell you that right now. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Also a 10 from Pookie yet again, who said, what do y'all think of the alleged AI BB videos and him missing the last 7 meetings? He's come out and generally been seen. Like, we saw a video of him in a coffee shop. I did see the video where they alleged that he had like multiple like fingers and stuff, like 6 fingers or something. Something is going on. I mean, also, by the way, you have to remember that Israel's currently in a war with Iran, just like the United States is in a war with Iran. So BB is not going to be visible very often because he's probably hiding out in a bunker, probably for the most part, trying to avoid the missiles coming in from Iran. So they're probably upped his security quite a lot. It's probably why he's missing for the most part. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say generally he's just like he's not dead. If he's dead, they announce it because they would pick a new leader, and a new leader will want to be picked. So that generally disproves the whole idea that he's dead. But a big thanks to you for support and helping the channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Fallen, who said they've been pounding them all night. Pause. You know what I'm saying? I know what you mean. I'm glad you know what I mean, by the way, because that was some very sketchy wordage on that one. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Cookie, who said Enforcer's views have been the same for years. Don't bag them because of the other stuff.
Oh no, people are going to bag us no matter what, you see, because in the political world, you're supposed to do damn somersaults these days with your morals and your approach to things, because some guy above you who happens to have a lot of spray tan, or he's old and senile, or a combination of the two, says something different one day. So, guns are good one day, and then they're not the next day, and then we never want to get in the war, but now we want to get into every war, so now it's good. And instead of it being a balanced thing where some wars aren't necessary, but, some wars are necessary and we have to do them. We've been bagged for 4 straight years because we've refused to change our position on anything, and it's not us who's changing, it's the political people who are changing literally every day, doing complete 180s. And what'll be funny, folks, is that here in a little bit, someone will say something, and then all those people who hated us tonight and were just trashing on us, they'll do a 180, and then they'll completely agree with us, and we never even changed our talking points or position once for 4 years. That's just how it's been. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Corky, who said not spending 2% of GDP 2014 to 2023 as a whole doesn't make Europe a historically good partner, and only reason wasn't 1949 through 2023 wasn't a requirement until 2014. They need to pay for their own defense, LSA. But the catch is though, it's the collective defense doctrine, which is what NATO is based on. means that these countries spend money on their own military, so that way the military can be used in a combat scenario by the entire alliance when they need to call on it. There's a couple of countries that are just shy of the 2% guideline, which is a problem. They need to get it above the 2%, but it doesn't mean that NATO is worthless just because there are a couple of like decimals below the 2% or something like that. That would be a little bit wild to say that the whole alliance is worthless over that. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, I'd have to say, I mean, that's a pretty silly notion. And on top of that, they can kind of do whatever they want. Like if they don't want to spend 2% of GDP, they don't have to. Like
Well, I
that's
mean, they kind of have to though, because I mean that's the guideline. So I mean, they're supposed to be
it's a
spending 2%. If
recommendation.
they're not, yeah, I mean, it's like a recommend. It's like it's not a hard and fast requirement. But I mean, it's there for a reason. They're supposed to be spending 2%. That's the guideline. If they're not spending 2%, then technically they're not up to standard and they're not up to par.
But if they're not up to par, then what? Where in the world is it written in the NATO
Well,
charter
then
if you
they're
don't
kind of
meet
freeloading.
what? Where in the world was the war in Europe recently where they were freeloading?
No, it wasn't about a war that they're freeloading. It's about if there is a war and they're not spending 2%, they're not going to have enough equipment because they're supposed to be spending 2%. It's variable. It's 2% of GDP. So depending on what a country's GDP is, that's what they're spending. So if a country came to spend 2% of their GDP and they're a smaller European country, then I would say it's fair at that point to say that is freeloading.
But I mean, at the same time, though, I mean, we just stated recently that everybody now has to spend 5% of GDP, and we're only spending 3.5 right now. And that spending quota has now been raised to 5%, and we're not meeting that. So are we freeloading in the United States, not meeting that 5% spending quota?
I don't think the 5% was ever formalized.
Well, hell, I mean, that's what the president's working off of. That's what we've basically pressed everyone into Europe into doing, and we still aren't meeting it. So it's like, are we freeloading technically now as well?
No, because the United States, like 3% or whatever it is, that's like $1 trillion or something like that we're spending on our military. Then nobody on the planet can come close to us because our economy is massive. So yeah. Here's like the difference. If you have like a country like the United States with a massive GDP, that's like it's obviously a global superpower, and then you have like a small country like take for example, let's say Hungary or something. Let's just take Hungary for an example. Let's say Hungary is only spending like 1%, just hypothetically speaking, of their GDP on defense. That is a minuscule amount of money because of their GDP being so much smaller. So it becomes a lot bigger deal, especially with the smaller countries.
But here's the thing though. Like here's what I'm saying. Like ever since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, because NATO was made to deal with that threat. For the next 20 or so years after that, until Ukraine was invaded in about 2014, or really honestly just 2022 when it actually became a significant threat. I mean, there really was no threat to the NATO alliance in existence at that point because Russia hadn't been able to form itself back yet as an actual threat. And that's why they all started to drop spending. I mean, it would make sense if there was an enemy on the horizon, like right now, and they weren't meeting a 2% spending quota to say that that's an issue. But if there's literally no existent threat to a military alliance at that point, and then they stop dropping spending because there's no imminent threat, and it goes below the 2% threshold, one, if the public in those countries have elected a government that started to decrease military spending to focus on other facets, I mean, are we going to start punishing the citizenry of those countries for trying to, get better amenities for civil institutions? And then two, if there is no existent threat, why in the world are they spending so much on military spending when there isn't an existent threat just for the sake of it?
Because NATO is mainly about deterrence. That's one of the number one factors for NATO. It's mainly about deterrence. So if you can't even get your partners to spend the guideline, that's not a very good deterrent factor.
But if there's no one to deter, then what's the point of the
There's always
deterrence?
somebody to deter. There's always enemies. China, Russia. There's always enemies.
But China isn't a threat to NATO. Like NATO's entire articles and charters are written about if the Russians shoot at someone in Europe, then we go to war. Like a NATO ship can't sail through the East China Sea, get blown up, and that's an Article 5 worthy invocation. It literally falls completely out of the charter. The charter literally says you have to get shot at north of the Tropic of Cancer, somewhere within Europe and somewhere within North America, and that's the only instance that you can invoke Article 5. And at that point, it's like, well, if there isn't any threats that exist within that geographical area to where anyone could do anything, because Iran didn't have the ability to hit anyone there during that time yet. Russia was literally in shambles and trying to even figure out where in the world it was during the last 20 or so years, up until about the mid to late 2010s. It's like, well, why in the world would they spend so much on the military considering that they don't have any existent threat within the area that NATO covers to even have a large standing military for, like, say, the Cold War.
I mean, that basically negates the whole idea of collective defense. If you're not spending on collective defense, then it defeats the whole point of the alliance.
Well, I mean, they were spending. It's just not up to 2%. I mean, it was like 1.7%, 1.8%. I mean, it's just slightly below. But, it's like if there is no existent threat to where most of them need to say, because they're all regional powers, they don't power project globally like we do. So they spend militarily based off of a threat that's in their region.
No.
If there's no threat in the region, there's not really a reason to be spending a huge amount on the military.
Well, I mean, under that premise, they should disband NATO. If that was the premise, the main premise behind NATO is it's a deterrent factor for the most part. So, I mean, if you're not spending always, and it's 2% of their GDP, it's not 2% like the United States is spending. It's not like that. We have a GDP that's massive. That's why we're spending $1 trillion. For these smaller countries, 2%, it's 2% of whatever they're making. So it's variable. So, I mean, no, if they can't meet the 2% guideline, that's too difficult. I mean, then that is freeloading at that point. I do have limits on when it comes to stuff like that.
I mean, nowadays I'd say that like meeting 2% would be necessary, but at the same time though, I mean, you can't compel you can't force anyone to spend that amount. Like once they're in NATO, they're in NATO. There's no way to kick them out. There's no way to force them to increase their spending really through NATO at least. You would have to go and start conducting overhanded tactics to make them try and increase the spending. And then once you do that, then they might not be that happy about doing anything to help us out. So, there's really no way to really deal with that, like even at this point, unless you were trying to get someone to get fairly unhappy with us by us trying to force them to increase spending.
Honestly, though, if they're not spending even 2%, like if they're nowhere close to it, like it's like 1% or something, and then they're also difficult as an ally, then I would say, I would also start questioning. I would say, well, wait a minute. Is NATO really a viable alliance at that point? But the problem is, though, it's not like that. Like, if there's a country that's not spending 2%, they're like a couple of decimal points off from 2%. It's not like they're like an entire percent point off or something like that. So we don't really have that problem necessarily. But if they're off by a big amount, I mean, that's by definition freeloading, is that they're not meeting the collective defense guideline by definition.
Let's see. So if a country is spending less than 2%, that's freeloading. That's what you're generally working off of?
Based on the current guidelines, yeah.
The People's Republic of China only spends 1.6% of its GDP on military spending. Does that mean that China's freeloading is the major power of their sphere on their military? And also, does that mean that they're combat ineffective?
Well, are they in a NATO alliance?
No, but speaking about defense and deterrence, the Chinese only spend 1.6 to 1.7% of GDP on military spending. And going
Yeah,
on
but they don't have a requirement. I mean, if there's no requirement for China to spend 2%, though, then they're not freeloading because there's no requirement for them to spend 2%.
But going off of the concept though that spending equals deterrence, if China is spending less than 2%, even as a non-NATO member, just applying this concept across the board, they would look like a weak country. Yet we say they're one of the most formidable military powers on the planet, and they spend a very small part of their GDP on their military. So going off of that, we could say that they're generally combat ineffective. They don't have a proper deterrent, and therefore, for that reason, they're as weak as the Europeans are, maybe even weaker. But nobody looks at them that way.
Oh no, I wouldn't say that. I mean, if China was in a defense alliance with like Russia, which I think there is a defense alliance between them, but it's like so minute, like it's not really that big of a deal. Nobody ever really mentions it. But if they were in a defensive alliance, like similar to NATO in their sphere of influence, and there was a guideline to spend like 2% or something, they weren't spending it. That would say, yeah, China would be freeloading. But if they're not in a defense alliance like that, and there's no guideline, I mean, they're not really freeloading because there's no guideline.
Well, I mean, there's no but you're saying like freeloading, like even without the NATO charter in mind, it's the principle, like the psychological idea that spending a certain amount will create a deterrent effect by the size of the military that's present. So going off of that, someone has to spend a decent amount of their GDP on the military just to, arbitrarily meet this deterrence threshold. China doesn't even spend that much relative to their GDP, yet we sit there and say that they're the most formidable threat to the United States in the world. And GDP percentage-wise, they're spending as much as an average European country would before they started to increase their spending after the invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, I'm not really following at this point. I'll be honest with you.
Well, we're saying like the NATO spending percentage of 2% is imagined up by a whole bunch of people to say this amount of spending makes over this percentage makes a country a formidable threat, and it would create some sort of level of deterrence. So it's a completely made up figure that we've come up with that 2% is the magic number. So a lot of these countries in Europe were spending 1.6% to 1.8% before they started to see that the war in Ukraine started. And everybody says, oh, these countries are clearly weak because they're not spending enough. But then China spends the same amount. And then we say, well, clearly they're a major military power that's as advanced and on par with the United States, spending literally what we say European freeloaders are on their militaries. Which then at that point, that doesn't really make any sense, because if China is a significant and formidable military power, spending GDP percentage-wise the same amount as all the European countries are, and they're even stronger than Europe and par on par with us, then that means that 2% spending figure is just arbitrary, and it just depends on one's opinion on whether they like the Europeans or not, and then that makes them look weak or not. Because, if we're going off of the Chinese perspective, every single country in Europe at a minimum spending 1.6 to 1.7% makes them militarily as formidable as the Chinese. And I mean, if you look at the actual figures, they are militarily as formidable, if not more formidable than the Chinese, but it's just the opinion that people have that Europe is a weak land that makes people say, oh, look how weak the Europeans are as a group. They're incompetent, weak, and completely pointless. And then we're also saying at the same time, this country that spends the same amount, which is China, which technically would be a freeloader in Europe, is going to be threatening to the United States and might actually obliterate us in a war. And that doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense to me. Like, we can't compel anyone in NATO to spend more. Like, if they want to spend less than 2%, that's how it is.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're violating the guidelines, though, then there's got to be consequences for it. There's got to be consequences. Otherwise, just abolish the alliance at that point. I mean, they got to follow the rules. I mean, if we're spending over 2%, so I mean,
Well, I mean, like, where's the punishment, though? Like, it has to be written in the charter. There were no punishments written in the charter because the concept back then was...
I don't think it's not too, like, just the damn European countries need to pay the 2%. It's just that simple. Like, if that's the guideline, pay the 2%.
Well,
like,
yeah,
it's not too much to ask for these countries to pay 2%.
But we're not talking about the present day. This guy's talking about up till 2014 and everything. I'm talking about then. There was no threat back then. Why in the world are they spending so much?
I'm not sure, but we got to move on, though. We got a lot more questions to get to.
All right. So with that, we're on to the next one.
Our next one goes to Chef Danny B. He puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, Chef Danny, for that support as well. He said, good evening, enforcers. Chef Danny in the house. And I was in Florence, Colorado yesterday, almost across the street from the Supermax. And also, I thought I was about to say that, by the way, about the Supermax being in Florence. He said, you never realize how much security that place has till you see it. And it's not far from me at all. And LLT, LSA.
And thank you so much for supporting. Yeah, ADX Florence is a wild place, honestly. And a huge thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Zunit, who said, I love how you balance each other out. Enforcer Matt is always cool, calm, and collective. The Enforcer is always intense, direct, and angry even. And keep up the great work.
And I thank you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Tabitha, who said, so proud of you both. And great coverage, Enforcers. You guys deal with the butt heads in the chat very professionally. And much respect.
And thank you so much for the support, and we try our best. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Demanoak, and thank you, Demanoak, as well, for that 10. He said, I thank all donators.
And I thank them greatly as well. They help to keep this channel running every day. And so a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 20 from Charger. I'm not sure about the rest of that username right there. That's crazy work. But thank you very much, Charger, for that 20. He said, here's the question to ask. Do you guys think that Europe is well prepared to defend itself after the Ukrainian war game? And do you feel good about spending American blood/treasure if they're invaded, given the NATO charter? Oh, yeah. It sounds, I obviously don't want any American deaths. Obviously not. Like, I don't want to see American deaths under any circumstance. But if there's something worth fighting and dying for, it would be to make sure that Russia is not invading and taking over Europe, because Europe, no matter what people say, will always be a strategic partner of the United States. They're very critical for our defense and economically. So, there may be some disparities that need to get fixed with trade. I agree, but it's not something to blow up the whole alliance over. Certainly not. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would definitely say that it's well worth defending them. because, right now we're down in the Middle East defending countries that hardly spend anything on their military GDP percentage-wise in some cases, and you don't see anyone really complaining about that. But beyond that, I also say that Europe is prepared to defend itself about as well as America is at this point, because both Europe and the United States have completely fallen behind on drone warfare, and while they'll see a significant problem with that, they'll be able to generally fix the gap in a different amount of ways, generally with air power against the Russians, because the Europeans have far more air power available and firepower as a result than the Russians do in the airspace scenario. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a $100 support from Richard Ager. And thank you very much, Richard, for that very generous $100 support, by the way. And we do appreciate that. That Australian support, all the way down from the land down under, they say. But thank you very much for the support. Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you massively for the support, Richard, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And a huge thanks to you for the incredible support without a comment. We're greatly appreciative of it. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Waka Waka What, who said, please, when possible, discuss the loss of our service members from the KC-135 out of MacDill AFB in Tampa, Florida.
And we did, and it's unfortunate to hear about their loss. And a big thanks to you for support, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Zunit once again, who said, I remember watching the news live in 2002 and 3, France, Germany, and Russia actively opposing the U.S. after 9/11 and the invasion of Iraq. The G7 were divided back then, similar to how they're divided now.
Well, the invasion of Iraq was different than the war on terror. I mean, the French and the Germans actually sent forces to Afghanistan with us, but the invasion of Iraq didn't really have much to do with it kind of had something to do with the war on terror, but it was built off the idea that the Iraqis were producing weapons of mass destruction, which there was really no proof of. And that's why a lot of those countries were contesting that and saying, oh, we don't really see the proof. Like, our intelligence agencies can't even corroborate that. And that's why they were split back then. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Measure Man, who said, you've got no idea how often a certain, wait a second, hold on. Let's see here. Oh dear. Sadly, Measure Man, I'll have to skip this one right here. I can't. We can say this as a statement. Generally speaking, I don't like it when people get too politically involved in either way or another. Like, people should think for themselves. Politics don't have people's best interest in mind. It's just not the name of the game. So unless people think for themselves, they will get fleeced by those people that they believe have their best interest at heart. That's across the board. But Enforcer, what say you?
I definitely agree. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Power, who said, guys, many of these are in Cuba, Portugal, not the country of Cuba. and you were right.
We realized that. I saw a lot of people saying that in the chat, and I was like, yeah, this doesn't look like Cuba. This looks like Cuba, Portugal in the listing. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Aragai SR, who said someone was zeroed out on that bed. LLT, LSA, and take one from the chat.
And I thank you for the support, and long live the Late Spring Army, and we will take one from the chat. So, Matthew, what do we got?
And this one right here goes to Jordan, who said, how likely could Iran get a nuclear warhead from their buddies, North Korea?
Absolutely impossible. Nobody really likes to give away their own nuclear weapons to other people because they never know how they're going to be used in the end, and they can never get them back after that. So a big thanks to you for sponsoring that live chat. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have another 10 from Charger, who said, mast. I think he meant to say Matt, but he wrote mast. He said, last question was addressing the Ukrainian war game and NATO getting smacked. Wouldn't you feel better about supporting NATO if they committed to their 3% and took preparation more seriously? But it's only 2%. Like, that's the formal guidelines, 2%. Like, the U.S. may say 5%, but I don't think that's formalized to my current knowledge. So I would honestly agree. I would feel better if all the NATO allies did meet the 2%. But if they're just shy of it, or it's like a technicality, or they're like a couple of decimals off or something like that, yes, it's aggravating, but it's not as big of a deal as they're making it out to be. But Enforcer, what say you?
So actually, NATO has declared that they will be trying to reach 5% GDP spending by 2035. And let's see here. Currently it is 2%, but it's supposed to be ramped up to 5% by the time of 2035. So they're all supposed to be meeting that by then, within the next 10 years. So generally, I would say the thing is, though, is that, like, here's what kind of people miss. Sometimes it's just good to have their land as a part of the alliance. They don't even have to have a huge military. And that's why NATO has no provision saying if you don't do A, B, and C, we kick you out. Like, there's literally no way to kick anyone out of NATO. It's not written into the charter that you can do that, because the idea was that it's just better to have allies than trying to get picky on them and pick and choose and act like we're trying to create some sort of an NFL dream team here. Because otherwise we kick them out, and the alternative back in the day is that they go and get steamrolled by the Soviets because they're on their own now and they don't have any military protection, and then they get screwed over. And that's why we don't have any way to kick people out, is because even if they're not spending that much on their military, it's better to have them as the territory in NATO and to have the front line pushed further east towards Russia than it is to start kicking a whole bunch of people out and have this weird hodgepodge thing going on in Europe, to where Germany is a part of NATO, but France isn't. So then we have to fly from the UK to Germany. And then if Germany gets taken over, then we completely lose our access in Europe. Like, that whole thing really doesn't make a whole lot of sense if we try and enforce it a little bit too much. Because, it starts to lose a lot of its luster. And I see some people, like, I see Matthew saying add a kicking clause. I mean, if that was a good idea, though, they would have done that way back then, and they gamed it out that it was a bad idea, and that's why when they created NATO, and for decades since after that, even when people weren't spending the right amount back then, they never kicked anyone out. But it's better to just have them in the alliance than to not.
Yeah, but you know how it is though with people. Like we're saying about the United States, having good relations with other countries and being respectful, so that it's a two-way street. We also have to understand that also, like for example, in professional relationships, there has to be guidelines and there has to be boundaries that are set, because people are people. If there aren't rules in place, naturally the human inclination is to take advantage. That's unfortunately the way it is for a lot of people. There are generally people out there that actually do the right thing despite having guidelines, but on the geopolitical level, that is extremely rare, if pretty much non-existent to the large part. So unless there's some type of consequential mechanism to put punishment on these countries which are not adhering to the guidelines, then you're going to have freeloaders in the mix. Which there are freeloaders right now. There's a small number of them. Like for example, and then there's countries that don't even act in NATO's best interest, like Turkey, for example. They act against NATO's interest all the time, and so does Hungary as well. Hungary, I don't even know, like Hungary doesn't even really have NATO's interest in mind hardly at all for the most part, but yet they're in the alliance, and we have no way at all to put them back in line except for tell them, hey, you better act right. And it's like, they're not going to listen to that. It's like, hell, if they wanted to act right, they'd be doing it in the first place.
But I mean, at the same time, though, it's like, if you kick Turkey out, now they're a neutral country. And then if a war starts, they could just go, okay, Russia can go through the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles and start obliterating people in the Mediterranean, which they wouldn't.
Yeah, they could do that anyway.
No, they can't technically, because if a war starts, the Turks by the NATO charter have to shut down the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles to everybody. Like, that's the current treaty that they're a part of. If you kick them out of that, if you kick them out of NATO, that treaty is rescinded as well, and that means the Turks could just go, whatever, we'll let the Russians in the Mediterranean. That's why you don't do that, because that wouldn't make any sense in reality. Because then we went from Turkey's kind of a half-assed ally to now Turkey is actively a literal sieve for Russian ships to sail through and start threatening everyone in the Mediterranean, which is even worse. Like, it's like trying to fix the problem. In the process of doing that, we've now made the problem even worse, if you see what I'm saying, in like those instances, for example.
Yeah, I can kind of see that a little bit. It's just, I try to be fair on all sides. Like, I will criticize the U.S. leadership when it's appropriate. Like, for example, the whole, going around and just treating everybody like they're dogs. Like, that's obviously not a way to act. And also that's just common sense. Like, you don't go around treating people like dogs unless you're an idiot. So that's, a problem. But also on the flip side of the coin, there are fair points about, countries freeloading, not being properly prepared, etc. Should we immediately go to the nuclear option and say we're just going to disband NATO? Absolutely not. But it's like there should be some consequences for some of these countries that are kind of freeloading. I actually had a little spat with a guy who came on our channel a long time ago, way back in the day when we did a podcast on the show. And he came on, he was a smartass to me about the whole situation, about the European situation, some countries not, paying the proper amount. And I will say that attitude certainly doesn't do any favors when it comes to people making the argument against NATO. It doesn't at all. But at the same time, though, I would never say just because the guy has a bad attitude over it and he lives in Europe that we should abolish the NATO alliance. That would be silly.
But here's also the thing as well. Like, in the modern day, this doesn't even really apply, because if you look at the current spending in 2025, which was last year, literally nobody fell under the 2% spending margin. Like even Spain and Portugal were spending 2%, and Northern Macedonia and other countries. Like literally nobody is falling below that. So I mean, like the whole thing of freeloaders doesn't even exist now. But as far as that super chat was addressing, which was up until 2014 and a little afterwards, at that point, it didn't really make that much of a difference because we weren't saying, oh shit, the Russians are about to go to war with us in like a few years. It's definitely coming. I mean, like, you know, if you're literally seeing in Europe and it's all roses and rainbows, like I can't even say like, oh yeah, we definitely need to make sure everyone's ready for war. I mean, you know, it's like wars take a long time. They don't just pop up out of the blue. They take a long time to form, like we've been telling you all about on this show for years now. So you can generally have some leeway and time to get ready and mobilize, which is what everyone's been doing right now. And everyone's now above the spending quota, which is great. And that's what they should be doing. And that's what should be happening in a situation like we're seeing right now. But if there's no threat on the continent and Russia's so disorganized and disjointed, it basically is like, you know, it's literally slobbering on itself over there in the corner because it doesn't even know what it is after the Soviet Union collapsed. You know, I can't say, oh, we have to be ready, you know, to steamroll the Russians. It's like, hell, they're not even ready to control their own country right now, much less pose a threat. So, you know, if they want to decrease military spending, then I get it. In the modern day, it wouldn't make any sense, but none of them fall below the spending quota. And that's why, like, we don't even need to have a discussion like that in the present day because none of them, by the definition, are even freeloading at all anymore.
Oh yeah, if they're meeting 2% now, then everything's good. We're good now.
Yeah, so, you know, like historically, you know, speaking about it, I don't get why in the world, if there is no threat, they need to spend, but they're spending now. So, you know, this whole thing of Europe's a freeloader and a bunch of bums, I mean, that's not even true because they're all spending over 2%. And I mean, on NATO's website, I mean, they break this down quite significantly on what they have planned, by what years, what targets they're meeting, what they're spending right now per capita, per citizen, what their actual total military budgets are as a whole. You know, and you know, it's pretty self-explanatory at that point. There really isn't even an argument to be had at this point about their freeloading. They're not. But anyways, with that, we were on to the next one.
I also have a question here from none other than MB, who put in a 10. He said, my brother-in-law had his face on an ad. It was used on a table in a mall. His face was a work of art after 3 weeks.
Huh, that's interesting. I thank you so much for support and sharing that. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Waka Waka What. He said, what's that Ruski coop plane been up to? It's been quiet recently. Suspicious?
We haven't really heard about him lately. Maybe suspicious. We're not really sure, though. But a big thanks to you for support, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Star Wars Geek, who said, do you guys think that the Chinese will try to invade Taiwan now since all of our attention and assets are focused on Iran?
Yeah, I kind of doubt it. I still think they're working on their own time window. But I hope that does address that well. Also, I saw Kevin Kidd say, not wanting them to join the war, just wanting them to help with the Strait. Well, that involves shooting at people, which is joining the war. You know, like that's kind of the thing. Like, you know, helping with the Strait is shooting at Iran and blowing up Iranian soldiers, which means that they have joined the war in support of us for a specific war objective, but they still joined a war. Like, I don't get how people these days don't understand. If you shoot at someone from another country with your army and you're shooting at their army, it doesn't matter what kind of thing you try and say, like it's the Malaysian emergency or it's a special military operation. It's all a war. I mean, once you start shooting in another country, that's the beginning of a war, a border war, something like that. Like, there's different names for them, but they're all wars. So, you know, if you're asking people to go shoot at someone, it's a war. But with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, we'll have to keep the pace up at this point because we're getting really late. But this one goes to Ishkatan, who puts in a 10 and said, you were spot on with the analysis of why former U.S. allies are not rushing to the Strait of Hormuz.
And I thank you so much for support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 10 from Toronto, who said, as a neutral, I would put it this way. Better to have a friend spend 1.5% than to antagonize them for 0.5%. Keep going with the top quality news, and greetings from the subcontinent.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 7 from Dr. Dree, who said, as a Canadian, I would enlist and try to get to the Middle East ASAP if the aggressor in this war wasn't shitting on my country for the last year plus.
Yeah, that's what generally I've been trying to get across to people. Some people still don't get how that whole thing works. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 7 from Fam, who said, if this war will collapse the U.S., what will the war with China do? Oh, it's
Oh,
not going
this
to collapse us. Like, we're not going to get collapsed. We're going to have some pretty damn bad economic pains from it, that's for sure. But it's going to affect not just us, it's going to affect the rest of the world too. Even the countries that are still getting their oil from Iran because they're being allowed through the Strait, they're also going to have impacts. China just cut off fertilizer exports yesterday. I'm not sure, I don't think we covered that on the stream tonight. They just cut them off as of yesterday because the fertilizer prices are expected to go through the roof. So they're already rising as we speak. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, they can't destroy us, but economically they can hurt us, and if we don't open the strait, it's definitely going to be happening. So a big thanks to you for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Donald Kaus. He said, Zelensky calls Putin. Zelensky said, hey, Vladimir, I want to hear the joke. And Putin said, so is Zelensky. And Putin said, I don't get it, Zelensky. You will never get it.
That's a good one. And thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Robert Krogan. He said, good evening, Forces and LSA. This isn't much, but I hope it helps.
And thank you so much for the support, and everything counts to us, and we thank you massively for that incredible support and helping the channel to keep rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, a big shout out to LSA Dragon who put in a 1, and we appreciate the support very much. And also like that Pimp Marmot you got there as your profile picture. And we also have a 5 from Donald Kaus once again. He puts in 2. He said, St. Patrick's Day and Putin on the Ritz.
And I got to thank you so much for the support, and I got to say, Putin on the Ritz. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Trippy, who said, it's fun how the administration says Ukraine isn't our war, yet when it comes to Iran, it's everyone's war. Make it make sense.
Yeah, I mean, make it make sense. Like, you had a big thanks to you for support, and we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Saintly Beginnings, who said, I say that if our EU allies do not help secure the Strait of Hormuz, then the U.S. should charge a per barrel fee to each EU country. No, we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that. That would be unfair to the extreme right there because, okay, let me get this straight though. Iran started the war. I want to make that clear because I saw some people misunderstanding me earlier when I say the U.S. started the war. Iran started developing nukes, so technically that was the real start of the situation, and the U.S. responded to it. But in reality, though, if we're being honest, the U.S. got the war kicked off. They're the ones who decided to go in and get them, which, in my opinion, wasn't a bad move. But we need to be more prepared for it. But for us to start, trying to punish Europe for not wanting to get involved in the situation that we started, that would be wild. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, and also on top of that, that's going to cause further economic damage that will make Europe distance themselves even farther from us. I mean, we're literally just going at this point and just trying to F with Europe so much. We're just basically begging to turn them into an enemy of the United States. Like I got to say, the foreign policy takes here from folks are getting like ridiculous. Like, we're like, oh, these people don't like us, so let's shit on them and give them a reason to really hate us now, so that they truly can be an enemy instead of us just imagining it. This is I got to say, folks, there's a lot of horrific ideas coming out on how to do foreign policy. Instead of winning people over, we're basically just trying to make them an enemy at this point. But with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Trippy, who said it's fun. I've already read that one off. Thank you very much, Trippy, for the support. We also have a 5 from Ian Mitson. He said, we missed you guys. I hope you had a good rest. Sadly, not much rest. I'll be honest with you, Ian. Not much rest. I've only gotten about, I think, only 4 hours of sleep the last 2 nights or so. So it's been a lot of lack of sleep, honestly. I think I've kind of gotten a little delulu because of it. But he also said, lately, I don't believe any news I read or hear about it until I hear from the Enforcer Bros as well.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for the kind words and enjoying the show that much. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Ulf Hednar, who said, happy Taco Tuesday, and hopefully we'll start seeing some better decisions in LSA.
Hopefully we will, and a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Melissa, who said, these issues aren't binary. Didn't we all learn lessons around respect, dialogue, and forgiveness in the schoolyard as the kids?
I guess some people didn't. These days, to be a quote unquote alpha male, you just got to be a jackass to the point you get your teeth knocked out by someone because they finally have enough of it. And people don't get, like, wise guys like that got their teeth knocked out back in the day, and they weren't wise for that long, or else they were talking talking like this because they were talking with their gums. And people don't get that these days because people don't get, like, just to be entirely honest, like, people don't get socked in the mouth like they used to, because now you get battery and assault charges for that. But people don't learn those lessons anymore, so they think you can go around and be a jackass to everybody, and that works. It doesn't. But with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a five from Irish Ed. And Irish Ed said, Happy late St. Patrick's Day to the LSA. And what do you think the USA is becoming an Axis nation? Irish Ed forever, LSA forever, and Irish Ed. And
I would.
we can't be an Axis nation. We simply can't be one because we have elections every 4 years. So the odds of having a back-to-back individual that exactly mirrors foreign policy of the last president is very, very low. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say we're not going to ever be an Axis power, but we're definitely going to get isolated on our own, which is not going to be a good thing. So a big thanks to you for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a five from Matthew Kirshner, who said, when Worldview goes public next month, will y'all use the site in your videos? And check it out. It looks pretty awesome.
We might, but we'll have to see. But a big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a five from Ulf Hednar, who said, where the hell is Bibi? The guy is MIA, and the Israelis have put out tons of AI slop providing proof of life, and the lack of transparency is maddening.
I don't know. We know that Netanyahu's alive, and that's really all we can say at this point. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Great Israel, who puts in a five and simply said Persia.
Hey, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
We also have a five from Live Animal, who said, my biggest nightmare is Israel and the USA declaring premature victory, and then the IRGC taking it out badly on the Iranians who are currently happy.
Yeah, there's always a chance for that. Hopefully that won't happen. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a five from Woodsman, who said, can you guys check out the video? Let's see here. We'll have to check that out off air. That sounds like it could be a video there that's a little bit interesting. But thank you very much for that support. We also have a five from Geezer John. He said, I can't spend a year urinating on allies, insulting them constantly, upending the world economy and starting an ill-planned war, and then scream they should help us.
Yeah, I would generally agree with that. But I do thank you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a five from Dan Brooks, who said, I still see people referring to folks here. Sadly, I can't read this one either, so it's political, but thanks, Dan, for that support. We also have a five from Geezer John once again. He said, Asia can't help us now, as our being tied up has made China and North Korea become emboldened, so Asian countries have to keep their forces close to home.
Yeah, that's kind of true to an extent, but they could try and help out if they wanted to a little bit, but they don't want to help out because of their own reasons, generally because everyone doesn't like being treated like crap, like they're insignificant countries, and then being called upon like they're supposed to still do our bidding. But a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Donald Kaus once again, who puts in a five. And thank you, Donald, for that support. He said, Matt, thank you for your additions to the show. And don't split up. You guys are like the Penn and the Teller of the news. And I tell you, the Penn and the Teller, I tell you what, I think those are fellows who are are they in the circus?
Still like
business?
magicians or something like that.
Oh, they're magicians. Okay, I've seen them, but I don't really know a whole bunch about them, to be honest with you. So didn't mean to insult them, by the way, to say they were in the circus business. So apparently they're magicians, which I guess is show business anyway, so it's pretty close. But thank you, though, for the kind words. I do appreciate that as well. And also, it takes both of us to pull this thing off these days. It's a hell of a lot of work on both of our ends. And if one of us wasn't pulling our weight, the show would not be doing as great as it's doing right now. So it's very important to keep it together. The Penn and the Teller, they say, the Penn and the Teller. But thank you very much, Donald, for the support. We also have a five from John Cook. Say what?
Man, the teller. Man, like I knew what you were doing right there. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a five from John Cook, who said Europe is not helping for one reason. Let's see here. Sadly, I can't read this one right here. I think this might be getting a little bit inflammatory. I might need a Tylenol after that one. But thank you for the support. We also have a five from Donald Kaus. He said, get you some Patty's Day beverages and some Patty's Day food. And thanks for all you do.
And thank you so much for the support. And a happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone, by the way, as well. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a five from Noel P, who said, if I visit Taiwan in the near future, what are the chances I could get stuck there because of a Chinese invasion?
If it's very soon, the chances probably wouldn't be too high, but if it's probably like within the next year or two later, the chances would be fairly high. But I do thank you for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Well, let's have a five from Craig Jones. He said, do you think that by the United States current administration denying Ukraine help, that it's made them 100 times better in drone warfare?
I don't really think it had that much of an impact on it, honestly, because they kind of were doing that on the side, regardless of how much support they've been getting the whole time. But a huge thanks to you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
And the next one goes to Dan Brooks, who puts in a 5. He said, no other countries want to be added to the quote unquote, something, 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 death to something chance. And honestly, I'll say that's a bad move. Like if a country is chanting a death to another country, just like a spoiler alert, that's probably going to be bad for that country, especially when you say that toward the United States. Like the United States isn't a pushover. Like let's just put it that way. We got the most powerful military on the planet, and when some pee-wee country like Iran with a whole bunch of old lunatics in charge of it decide to start chanting "Death to America," that's probably not going to end well. And honestly, it probably shouldn't because, and I don't appreciate countries saying "Death to America." We hadn't done shit to them, so they can chill out. But Enforcer, what say you?
I definitely agree. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Santa Sosa, who said American flags in the chat.
And a big thanks to you for the support as well. And a big thanks to you once again. I hope that is addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Saintly Beginnings, who said Europe has been buying Russian oil throughout the war. And natural gas too.
Like natural gas more so, but oil has mostly been cut off and they've been buying from the Middle East and from the United States, really. But I do thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from RDS, who said, great job, guys, and I love the updates.
And thank you so much for enjoying the updates. And a huge thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 2 from Craig Jones, who said, LSA food fun.
And thank you so much for the support to the food fund. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Brooke Tiger Girl, who said, this would be funny, but it won't let me say what I want. And also, by the way, if you want to tag me in the chat, what it was that you were going to say, I will read it off and return right back to it. But thank you very much for the support as well. We also have a 2 from Elka PME, who said, I think the U.S. is just kind of rage bait maxing right now.
Not really a good thing to do as a country. I mean, that's funny to do, owning trolls on the internet and stuff, but you don't really run a nation like you're trying to rage bait and troll the haters. Doesn't really work well. But a big thanks to you for the support, and we're on to the next one.
And also, by the way, the super chat that was for whatever reason censored, apparently, that Brooke Tiger Girl wanted to put in, said, I want to say my super chat. Number 1, y'all's channel, y'all's rules. Number 2, call a spade a spade. Getting into measuring contest there, not such a great thing. And also number 3, a new slogan, keep pounding them all night. Honestly, that slogan there, that's a wild slogan, freaky ass slogan right there. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, I'm not gonna lie, man. I mean, like, man, put that shit on the shirt and keep pounding them all night. Like, honestly, man, that'd be hilarious. But beyond that, I gotta say a big thanks to you for the support, Brooke Tiger Girl. And I gotta say, that is generally true. Like, a lot of people don't get that either. Like, people be in the chat like, stop your opinions, tell us the news. Like, who the hell are you? It's like, this is our channel. It's like, we want to say something, we'll say it. It's like no one's gonna stop us. But a big thanks to you for support and helping the channel to keep on running. With that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Mark Andre Brunette, and thank you very much, Mark, for that support as well. We also have a 2 from Harry Oliver, and he did not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Harry, for that support, and we appreciate it. We also have a 2 from Bald Eagle, who said, breaking news, New Mexico base attacked and locked down. Now, I saw earlier that there was a base that apparently had like suspicious packages show up at it or something like that. I can't remember if it was that one or not, but I heard that they evacuated one of those bases over those suspicious packages. But I don't know if it was New Mexico. It could have been though. But Enforcer, what say you?
And that is quite interesting here, and I thank you so much for the support. And with that, we were on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Brooke Tiger Girl once again, who said, y'all going to visit Alabama anytime? You got to call me.
Oh, well, I thank you so much for the support, and thank you for the offer. We generally don't travel a whole lot because we run the show a great deal, but I do thank you for the offer. A big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Chicka D, who said, Axis and allies still carrying World War II war debts.
That's true. Big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 1 from Plazoth, and thank you very much, Plazoth, for that $1 support, and we appreciate that very, very much. And with that, folks, that is our last super chat that we have to address. So a huge shout out to everybody once again for helping to keep the channel running with that support, because as we always say, we have turned down sponsors. In fact, turned down sponsors galore for the streams. And recently, because of the major viewership the channel's been getting, I've been getting reached out to left and right by people wanting to sponsor the channel, and we have not accepted any of them because we want to keep the channel clear and clean of sponsors, at least on the streams at least. We have done some sponsorships on videos in the past, here and there, but we don't really do those regularly pretty much either because, I won't comment any more on that, but we try to limit the sponsorships that we do. We try to keep it very minimal on the videos only. only. No sponsors on the live stream. So we do appreciate that support very, very much. But it's now time to get our Morse code decoders to the stream. Tonight we had Paul, Kevin, Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, Heroya, Fluffiness, Coach, Kopateric, Sire, and Brian. They said the Morse reads, Iran is losing even more top officials. Maybe they'll tap out eventually. And LLT, LSA.
And that is the sound of money, and that is dead on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night, and I had to congratulate y'all greatly for getting that correct time and time again. The Lee Springer Arsenal Corps is always getting it dead on the nail, and I got to say that that's an absolutely amazing thing to see that y'all are able to understand the Morse code and get it out there to everyone what it means. And so with that, we are going to be moving on to the live chats, folks. And I got to be honest with y'all, I don't even know how in the world we've made it through 4 hours of stream nearly, but we have been able to do it. At this point, though, we're only going to be taking 3 live chats and then rounding this thing out because I have a terrific headache, and also I'm just absolutely beat at this point. But with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
Also, by the way, sadly, like we ran through all of our live chats earlier. I wasn't going to say it before we went through that segment, but I literally have no live chats, and I was trying to scroll through to get some, and I don't see any in the chat whatsoever. So unless we stick around and call out for more live chats, I don't have any to address.
Let's see here. Let me see if I can find something for a final question of the night. Here, how about a million bands live chat? Do you see it, Matthew?
A million bands. They're rich.
Man, they got a million bands, blood. But let's see. Do you see it? Because if so, I could do like the outro thing, and we could do the final question, read it, and answer it, and then round this thing out.
I'm not seeing a million bands. I'm trying to look through here. Shouldn't be hard to. Should be whatever. But let's. My brain's starting to go, as you can tell. Let's see here. Oh, I'm scrolling up. I'm trying to look for the million bands. So I'm not seeing million bands. Sadly, I don't see it.
Let's see here. I'll read it off. Let's see. Let me see if I can go find it again now. So, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night? It's a million band C4 who said, question, how much firepower does Iran have to continue this war? Not a whole lot. They have a few transport reactor launchers left and some drone forces, but outside of that, most of their firepower capabilities have largely been destroyed. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and we've reached the end of the stream. I've got to thank you all greatly for having been here tonight. We had a peak viewership of 27,000 people and a total viewership of 226,000 people. We thank you all so much once again for watching. We're always incredibly honored and highly appreciative to be able to cover this news for all of y'all, and we hope to see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And if there is a short war video to be made, Enforcer Matt will be the one making that short war video. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Haram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic. Oh, actually, we have one last super chat here really quickly to address. So Matthew, what do we got?
So the last one of the night is a massive $317 donation from Trism 666. And thank you very much, Trism, for that $317 support. Absolutely massive. And we appreciate that very, very much, by the way. I think that is one of the largest super chats, if not the largest, of the night. And Trism said, happy St. Patrick's Day. And thank you for all the effort you guys put in to keep us all informed. And keep up the good work, and good night, LSA.
And thank you so much for that unbelievably massive support, Trism 666, and a big happy St. Patrick's Day to you as well. I got to thank you massively for that unbelievably humongous support, and thank you so much for enjoying the news for an incredibly long time and helping this channel to keep on rolling. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again, and with that, we will see you all tomorrow. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Haram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, I feel like these days that we're kind of feeling like, you know, that Russian sleep experiment where they kept that Gopnik awake for like 7 days or something like that, and he kind of went cuckoo by the end of the 7-day period right there. And they were like, "What's wrong with him? Look at him!" And he started acting crazy and stuff like that. And he was in like this cage, and he was like scratching at the walls and stuff, and going crazy, seeing stuff. And I feel like the lack of sleep, that's a terrible thing. Like, you really got to have your sleep really these days. So with that, folks, we're going to get a little bit of sleep, catch up on that whole situation. Then start the news cycle again tomorrow, because there's a war on right now, and we got to cover that news. And a huge shout out to everybody that was here tonight, by the way. A whopping 230,000 people here tonight. We appreciate every single one of you for joining us, and we'll see you all tomorrow. And with that, Slava Ukraine, Hiram Slava, get some rest, and good night.